And the freshman gets the corner. It's a foot race. Knocked out at the 1. Now you see the talents.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
Feely in motion. Got a man down the sidelines. It's him, Feely, and he is off. One man to beat, cuts it back, and brought down to the 20-yard line by Sheridan Jones. They're going to say touchdown. He landed on somebody. Feely with a magic act, and they're calling it a touchdown.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Here's Edwards with a lane. Donovan Edwards down the sideline. Gets past Ransom. Donovan Edwards. Touchdown, Michigan. The Don.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Looking for an option to the end zone. He goes. Touchdown, Canes. Jacoby George.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
This time in the shotgun. Play fake. Aller to the end zone. Touchdown. Penn State. Khalil Dinkins.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
They're going to go Wildcat and snap it directly to Mappa. He tries the right-hand side. He finds Pater. That's a Clemson touchdown.
Now here's David Smoke, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoke.
All right, here we go on this new week as we are a little bit past the midway part of July and, of course, August when football workouts begin for some, even in late July. David Smoke, Craig Smoke, Paul Catalina, 365 Sports in studio today, and also Garrett Ross and Emery Winter here as well. We will hear a little bit from Dave Aranda from down in San Antonio at Texas High School Coaches Association, his thoughts about recruiting and much more. We'll have that here in just a little bit. But ACC Media Days, Commissioner Jim Phillips, of course, with the opening comments. Also hear from the Bad Boys, Florida State, Georgia Tech, and then the newcomers in SMU. That's the plan for today. Here is what Commissioner Jim Phillips had to say today on the main stage, opening up the conference's 4-day media days. One of the top 3 conferences. That's something that Brett Yormark said in Vegas. In generating revenue in college sports, we fully expect that will remain in the years to come. He also said, we will fight to protect the ACC and our members as long as it takes. We are confident in this league and remain a premier conference in college athletics. These disputes continue, talking about Clemson, Florida State, others, to be damaging and disruptive to the league. This conference is bigger than any one school or schools.
Well, I guess we'll see that. I mean, it stands to be true that it should be, but Jim Phillips is walking the tightrope of, well, we'll see if it is or not. And the thing is that Jim Phillips and the other schools, unfortunately, don't get to just say that. And I'm saying this because on this side of the argument, I'm with them, but there are powers that be that might say, no, you're not, and then it'll just be done with it. But the ACC finds itself in a really precarious and interesting position, and you know they need to really be working on right now what the plan is if when they do get out and solidifying what it's going to be. The problem is that there's a bunch of schools that won't tell them what they plan to do once Clemson and Florida State are free of the league.
Yeah, there's also the problem of you don't know when Florida State and Clemson are leaving. There's that whole to-do. Like, if it's in 5 years, then what does it matter about having a plan right this very moment? If it's next month, then, yeah, that's something that you need to be pivoting and working towards. So where are we in that? Can somebody answer that? I know there's a bunch of people on Twitter that say like it's coming tomorrow or the 15th of August or whatever.
Here's a comment. This is from Pete Thamel. This was actually earlier in the day. Told by multiple sources there's no expectation for Florida State or Clemson to notify the conference they intend to leave by August 15th. That's the deadline to depart if they're not going to be a part of the league next year.
Well, and that confirms what Michael Alford said to Dennis Dodd back in June, that this year was not the year they were going to do that. So if it's coming, it's not coming until 2025 at the earliest.
Right. So he doesn't have to have something ready to go right now. Now, if there were to be some settlement, then that upends the timetable somewhat, hastens it. If there's something unforeseen, sure, but it sure doesn't appear to be the case that they're going to be announcing something in the next 3 weeks. I thought they were supposed to announce something like a week or so ago. That just came and went. Now, then it was August 15th. That looks like it's just going to come and go. So they're going to be in the ACC through this season and next season.
Yes.
And look, we did that with Texas and Oklahoma. We did that with the West Coast schools, and they had a little bit of a buffer period where you knew they were leaving, but they still had that last time commitment to fill out before they bolted. This is not apples to apples in that case, but there is a little bit of a countdown they can at least start of like, all right, we know that there's at least a couple of years remaining. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah.
Including this one?
With Texas OU, we knew even when Brent Zerneman broke the story that there was going to be a couple of years. And remember, there could have been even another one. But the Big 12 and Texas OU decided to not settle, but let's negotiate this out. You get out, we bring in, and we all move on.
So there's precedent for there being schools on their way out officially and still being able to cohabitate for a little while. And that sounds like what is going to have to happen here with the ACC is just what I'm getting at, because this is not going to be a situation where it looks like come 3 weeks from now, they're like, all right, that's it. We're headed out, baby, and here's the countdown, and this is our last year or next to last year. Now, maybe that comes later on, and likely it will, but if you were hoping for a huge explosion today, I don't think you got that in terms of like actual, this is breaking and this is how it's going to break. But man, you sure did, though, even though you didn't get that, saw all the little cracks, and you saw all the little warts, and you saw all the disruption, and you saw that, man, this looks a lot like the Pac last year. And we don't even know, because one is barking so loud. There's another that's next to them, and it's there for support and is just not as loud in Clemson. And then there's a bunch of schools you don't really have an idea of what's going on in their minds. You think you know, but you really don't, and you assume you know, but you really don't, because they all have different potential landing pads, whether it's North Carolina or it's North Carolina State and any other school you want to mention. So, yeah, today the takeaway is that it doesn't seem like anything's on the precipice of happening as far as a gigantic move, but man, there is going to be that at some point in time, and it's just a matter of if, or a matter of when, not if.
Doesn't this, though, seem a hell of a lot healthier than the Pac-12 a year or two ago?
Well, only because they have the like the power of attorney to not flip off the machine.
Yeah.
That's the grant of rights until 2036. If not for that 2036 day, this would be way more chaotic. And Jim Phillips...
But it's there.
It's there, yes. It's there. Jim Phillips reiterated that throughout the press conference a couple times. It's like basically saying they signed this agreement.
Phillips said that they, for those trying to exit the league, they twice signed an extension with the agreement to 2036.
Now, of course, there's not... the guarantee of it would be all the way to 2036. Sure. There's the ESPN clause coming up at the beginning of next year that could change and turn this all on its head as well. I'm sure that'll be another just wait for that. Actually is something that you probably now do have to wait for, and not something that's like happening right this very second, like the last month has been filled with. But yeah, I think today, just generalizing what I heard from Jim Phillips was he's a man who's clearly on defense. I think they're clearly a little concerned about where this is headed, just in terms of what they're having to do to try to protect themselves, and also what could still be to come if that contract does not prove ironclad. And I think it's just totally obvious that this is a conference that is not going to look the exact same on the other side of this thing. And I just don't know what the other side of when you turn that page, if it's later on this year or 2 2036, like, because all the contractual legal stuff, like, I don't pretend to know all of that stuff.
Let's say
but
it's 2027. Okay, it's still a long way.
It's still a long ways away, but what we're walking into is a very contentious and very just unhealthy conference foundation and layout right now. I think that's what's clearer than anything else.
What I think Florida State and Clemson are angling for, ideally, is an exit point around the time that they look into the college football playoff deal.
Right.
Because if that happens in the next couple years, if they are able to exit then and they have the look in on the deal and they know what the playoff is and where they're not going to make more money, where they can make more money, where that's going to change, then that's going to reset the market again. It is interesting to me, and I would have to talk to somebody who understood this, about Florida State and Clemson twice signed that agreement. Their argument, and this is where I get stuck, because it's not intellectually dishonest or anything, but their point is a whole lot of things have changed since we agreed to that, and now we're stuck in this antiquated thing, and we feel like we're falling behind, and we don't want to fall behind, so we're going to do what we can to get out. Now, their methods, absolutely questionable. But I also don't know if there's any kind of legal precedent to be like, well, the landscape has fully changed and they're allowed, like, they've got freedom to go do something else because they signed a deal that's now arcane by measure. And I also say this, it was really stupid of them all to sign that in the first place.
Well, but at the time.
Even at the time, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
All right, well, Jim Phillips is defending Swofford.
He'll say at the time. Here's the thing. Okay, if the SEC wasn't doing it at the time and the Big Ten wasn't doing it at the time of signing something to 2036, why in the world would you?
I don't remember
if you
exactly.
are as good as you are, like you said.
I do think that there was a reason for it. I can't remember what it was.
Because Florida State and Clemson were talking to the Big 12 then.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's still so many different routes this could go down. I mean, there's only a few that we're clear on. Is like, hey, a settlement of some sort, a clause kicking in or not kicking in via ESPN here in a few months, waiting all the way out to 2036. I don't know where eventually that goes, but I do know this, that it's very contentious, and we're only really hearing from like one of the schools, really. I mean, we're just hearing Florida State. Nobody else is really barking. Others are saying stuff like little things here and there, but they're not like rattling the cage. Florida State is, and to Florida State's credit, although I think they've kind of gone overboard in some cases because it does become petulant little children, is if they didn't do that, would we be talking about this? Would the heat be turned up as much as it is on Jim Phillips in the conference if Florida State wasn't so loud about it?
If they were Clemson right now, like Clemson is, I had somebody I spoke with, our buddy Rick. I got to know him about a year ago. He's very tied into the ACC. He's a sponsor, very highly up the ladder, not in the administration. Spoke with him a little bit on Friday, and he said that Clemson has positioned themselves in a way that they don't look bad.
Right.
That they could actually at any time go, you know what? Because even though they're really, really, really good in football and they're okay in everything else, some other things, they could easily just step away from this thing and say, no, we're a part of this conference. We're moving forward with them. And then what would that mean for Florida State? Like they would be on an island. They would still want to leave. Yeah. But Clemson kind of, in a way, looks like they're not really combative here.
So, and I read a lot today. David Hale, maybe as far as like an overall conference writer at ESPN that they have, maybe the best one when it comes to covering the ACC because he just understands every school so well. But he wrote kind of a history of the grant of rights and what it was and kind of what the legal cases are. Florida State is trying to argue within its own state laws, and I'm sure they're probably stealing a little bit from Clemson and vice versa, that they should be allowed to do what they want because there are provisions inside the grant of rights that should allow them to do that. Clemson's argument is very simple. It says the grant of rights says that you own the home games and that the ESPN contract in that says that as long as there's 15 teams in the league, the money's going to stay the same. So Clemson is saying if we leave, technically nothing changes, so we shouldn't really owe you anything. Because we can leave and go and take our our rights somewhere. You won't own our home games anymore. We'll sell those, and we'll make an agreement with somebody else, and then you can go sign somebody else to take our place, and then you still have that same inventory. So in that argument, it's very simple, but the devil's in the details because the ACC is like, the hell you don't owe us any money. No, it's way different.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've definitely taken a different approach, and they've positioned themselves differently, and they've been a lot more professional about it, I guess you could say. And so I think that if somehow or another they were forced to stay in this arrangement, they would be able to get along just fine, whereas I think with Florida State, it would be a lot more difficult to do that. You're still not going to let them out of their room if you have control over that, but they're going to be kicking, screaming, and yelling the entire time that they're under your roof. And I think that much is clear at this point. And I don't blame Florida State entirely, but they definitely are the ones falling on the sword as far as taking the brunt of public criticism for how this is unfolded. But yeah, it's a bit of a mess. I'm not going to be one of those folks that's like, it's falling apart. Get ready. Here comes the Noles of the Big 12. I'm not in that camp, but I do think today just reinforced the idea of like, man, this just seems like a really rocky territory for the ACC. And I don't know how ironclad that contract is. And if they somehow are able to force this arrangement for another decade, then my God, I don't know what that looks like. But that would be fascinating. And at the same time, if they're unable to do so because the courts rule differently, then I think it's easy to see how this could all come crumbling down pretty quickly. And I know that there's very passionate ACC fans who become anti-Big 12 fans. There's like this Pitt guy who's just, I see him constantly, and I don't follow him, but I see him, and he's constantly beating down any Big 12 rumor and things, and he's getting very frustrated over the fact that people think the ACC won't survive. And so maybe it does. But it's just hard to imagine a scenario where they survive long-term and it has anything to do with Florida State or Clemson in particular and possibly others.
You said that Florida State has fallen on the sword for everybody else, right?
Yeah.
I think they threw themselves on the sword.
Oh, yeah. I mean, whatever. Same, tomato.
Listen.
They're not dipping the toe in the fire.
They have to protect themselves, but at the same time, you wonder if they could have taken the Clemson approach here. They've been very outspoken.
See, I don't think so, because I think had they not, like I just said a second ago, if they don't do that the way that they've done it, I mean, clearly, like, they could probably pull back the reins a little bit in some cases. But then again, that's like some of their fan base. You can't really dictate how the fan base reacts passionately or not. So a lot of what we're even referring to is fan base related, really. But had they not made as much noise, then has everybody spent the past like 2 weeks talking about nothing but the ACC dissolution? And I've seen that nationally. I've seen that social media-wise constantly for the last 2 weeks. It's made a lot of noise. Whether that means anything or not in the long run, the courts are going to decide that, not Twitter. But it has created this sort of this PR look for the ACC where everybody is assuming death and the dissolution, and everybody's already, dream or wish casting where their team is going to end up, not in the ACC in the long run. So it's created this environment where all this speculation is occurring and seems to have some validity behind it, because there is now a growing belief of like, well, dang, I think they really are in trouble. And if this doesn't go their way, then I think this thing, and so that loudness by Florida State has created that firestorm.
I think the ACC is fine. I don't think it's the Pac-12 and anywhere close to that.
I'm not speaking for myself.
And Florida State, usually there's always one that's a little more outspoken than others. But here's from Pluto 2363 in the chat room. Thank you all for being a part of today's show. Also, if you haven't already off the top, we'd appreciate you hit the like button and also subscribe if you have not. My biggest issue with FSU or Clemson to the SEC, ESPN owns both. They pay less for FSU, Clemson, and the ACC. Why would they ever agree to move those two to the SEC and pay them more? Makes no sense.
The only reason it would make sense is if they're tired of paying the other schools that they don't like. Like if ESPN's like, damn, we got to get a lot of money to Boston College and Georgia Tech, and we hate that, which I don't think is true.
Yeah.
Like that's the only way it works out. And I'll say this kind of dovetails nicely into something that was brought up today at ACC Media Days, which I know we'll talk about at length. But part of the identity crisis they're having is that the SEC has a TV network that has shills all over it talking about how great the ACC is. They have Paul Feinbaum, who is willing to cup the balls of every SEC team that's there, no matter what.
You said cup, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And the
Peter
ACC,
Burns.
the ACC has really good shows on it. They're well produced. They've got good analysts on game day. But can you tell me who the ACC's Paul Feinbaum is?
I don't know. I don't even watch him, so I wouldn't know.
But you do know who he is, even if you know who he is.
I know of him. Yes,
exactly.
I know
who he is.
Yes.
Everybody in college football knows who Paul Feinbaum is. The ACC is saying, and look, it's not good that shills exist anyway, but the ACC is like, well, how come ESPN didn't give us a shill? Like, how come they're not promoting us as much as they are? The network's owned by the same company. It's like we're less important to them, and I think they have some validity in that argument, even though the SEC has been more successful overall.
Okay, but we all know that, for example, with the Caton Clark effect, that ESPN is now promoting WNBA basketball more than ever, along with Angel Reese and others. It's their network, and it's their programming. Mm-hmm. They pick and choose what they're going to promote more than others. They used to promote the WNBA, but it was there, right? It was there. Now, these numbers are coming back, and so they're promoting the games and putting more games on than ever before, and the SEC gives them that when it comes to college football.
Yeah, it does, and I know you're probably going to roll around to that quote at some point in time, or is we going to dive into it right now about the SEC network part of it? Because I got my thoughts just on ESPN in general and like the whole agreement with the contract and, you know, the promotion or lack thereof and all that is I just don't know because I'm not a lawyer. So these are just things that non-lawyers like me or non-hardcore like diving into the grant of rights agreements and all that, like I like realignment to some extent. I don't like to get into the actual dirt of it necessarily, like on contractual stuff like that. I just wonder how ESPN could spitting in the face of like 10 schools and saying, we're taking away your TV contract. I just don't know how that would work. Like, you're just going to tell Boston College and Pitt and Syracuse and like markets that apparently matter too. I don't know there's the whole conversation about market importance and all that, but so can they just freely just basically say, like, we're discarding you guys? Oh, yeah, we're probably going to still want some of your basketball games down the line, and we'll still want to talk about you. But can you just cut them off like that and there not be an issue of some sort? Like, that's just something I've wondered about when the whole conversation about, well, ESPN will just take the schools they want, put them where they want, and then wash their hands of everybody else. Is like, can they legally do that? Like, is there not some sort of a backlash if you were to just drop 10 schools on their heads and walk away from that agreement that wouldn't have some long, lasting effects when it comes to just the business in general and trust and things like? I don't know. That's the part I wonder about as much as anything else.
Yeah, I don't know about all that. Where you could just say you're done. I mean, that's what happened to Pac-12 teams, right? But they found, like Oregon State, Washington State, they're the ones that were left by themselves.
But their contract came up and their schools split legally.
There's a difference. Yeah, the ACC's 2036.
This would be the ESPN itself saying, we're going to take your best teams, put them on our other brands, and the rest of y'all can take peanuts or just find another home. And that to me just seems like it would be problematic.
Yeah.
But again, I'm not a lawyer, so maybe it wouldn't be. Maybe you could just do that and turn all those teams away from this agreement and they just have to swallow it and take it, and there's no hard feelings. But I don't know. I feel like it'd be a bit more disruptive than just, the clean, we'll take you two, and you're going to go to our SEC brand, and then we'll walk off and go in our new direction. I think it'll be a bit messier.
If ESPN sees a reason to promote something more than others or show something more than others because of financial reasons, they'll do it. And so if the ACC gives them that, they'll figure it out. They'll figure it out.
And I think my question is, and look, the WNBA has been having this argument a lot louder than the ACC for way longer about, hey, we're on your network. Would you talk about us just a little bit? Aside from when something weird happens, like, it's not even like, yes, you're going to push what's hot and you're going to follow the trends. I think that ESPN as a whole sometimes doesn't promote everything they've got to their own detriment.
No. But it's their network.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just saying, if I was in charge, I would be like, okay, we've got these properties that look, the WNBA is on prime time in the middle of the week. I'm like, even before Caitlin Clark was even a thought, I would maybe push it a little bit more. I'm not going to shove it down people's throats, but I would push it a little bit more. Look, we're paying a lot for this ACC network.
They're going to promote the NFL, NBA, and college football.
Yeah, but my point is, if you have financial interest in all these things, you should create maybe not equal effort, but
you don't have equal financial interest in all these things.
Yeah, but they still have financial interest.
Here's what I know. I don't watch Paul Feinbaum. I know who he is. I know he's been covering college football forever, and I know that he's very much entrenched in the SEC. So the ACC, someone rise to the occasion, somebody raise their hand and say, hey, we want to do a national show. We, I think, do a hell of a job covering the Big 12 or Baylor and everybody else, right? So I don't understand why ACC Network is a thing, right, Craig? It's a thing. Just because they don't have strong enough personalities, is that ESPN's fault?
I don't know. I wasn't really speaking to the Feinbaum thing a second ago. I was speaking in general about the idea.
No, I know what you were speaking about. I was bringing that up as part of more discussion.
Yeah, if we're going to talk about the Feinbaum thing, that's up to somebody that's anchoring the ACC network to have stepped up and been interesting enough to have their own platform. Yeah. And clearly ESPN doesn't feel like there's anybody that's done that, or clearly there's not anybody that's attempted to do that. Feinbaum, to his credit, has created the audience. He has the diehards. Now, if Jim in Raleigh and Betty Sue in Atlanta and Phil and Pitt don't want to call in and be like Dale in Tuscaloosa every day, well, there's just not the same audience or the same passion. And let's face it, the SEC is different. It does, as stupid as the tagline is, it does mean more. So maybe there's not that audience to have a Feinbaum, but Jim Phillips was talking about just promotion and in some cases propaganda, because that is what Feinbaum can be, and I say that respectfully, but it's true. And so they want more pro-ACC stuff. I don't blame them for that, but I couldn't begin to tell you the reasons as to why that's not happening, probably mostly because there's not a personality or an audience that would be similar to what the ACC or the SEC and Paul Feinbaum have carved out.
Who owned the Pac-12 network?
The Pac-12 did.
They did not have any connections to Fox or ESPN or whatever, right?
Yeah.
That was on their own.
Yeah.
I would think that's very difficult to do. The ACC is still one hell of a conference. Mm-hmm. It's one of the things that gets lost in all this is Florida State, yeah, they want to get out. Clemson perhaps want to get out. Maybe others want to get out. Craig, you brought up the fact, can they just can ESPN just disappear in Boston College and Pittsburgh and Georgia Tech are all by themselves? They would how many of those schools would land? It would create unbelievable speculation.
There's just this one scenario that I see pop up that I'm questioning because I don't know, because like I said, I'm not a lawyer, and it's the situation where that big bad villain ESPN says Clemson and Florida State, you're going to the SEC, which they might go to the Big Ten for all we know. They might not go anywhere for another 10 years. Like, that's the thing. We're not promising or predicting anything. We're just talking about this. But I just don't, like, just lawyers tell me, is it just legal to just take your two prizes and just put them on your other network that you also own and then tell everybody to kick rocks? Like, that's the part that I'm, and without any sort of, like, collateral damage down the line of, like, you just say, screw you, Syracuse, Pittsburgh, Louisville, everybody. Now, I'm sure some of them would find homes, and you'd help them find homes in some cases, Louisville probably to the Big 12, which you also have an incentive in. But that just seems like bad business to, like, crater an entire conference.
That's where that February decision comes into play where, look, Jim Phillips can say, well, Florida State and Clemson signed this deal. Well, he can't get mad at ESPN if the deal that they signed with ESPN and ESPN does that because all this is going on. ESPN's not going to tip their hand in that at all until they do, because if they do, then it's going to make it look like they do have these, evil puppet master plans. But Craig, I want to compliment you. I'm thinking about it differently on Feinbaum because ESPN didn't create Feinbaum. They went and got him. Yep. Feinbaum curated his whole crazy audience. So in a way, the SEC is just lucky that Feinbaum exists and is there to lap up whatever they throw at him. And he's done that and built a career out of it and written books and had this big radio show and TV shows and all of that. But nobody in any other conference. It's not just the ACC. The Pac-12 didn't have one. The Big 12's never had one, especially not one that is so aggrandizing to the league like Feinbaum is, that our league is better, everybody else sucks, and don't bother me, his kind of attitude towards it. So, yeah, the SEC is just kind of lucky that Feinbaum existed in the first place.
Well, they had to be smart enough to hire him, even
exactly.
if a lot of people watch him or not.
Yeah.
Okay. So this was a banner at the ACC Media Days that was put up earlier in the day. Toughest non-conference schedule in the country. I've never seen that used. Now, I love non-conference games, the good ones, like Michigan, Texas, et cetera, right? I don't understand. That's a big banner. That cost about $1,000 to make that banner right there, maybe more. Have you ever seen that?
And you may only be able to use it once, too. That's the other thing. Once that thing's done, it's going to be in some intern's garage.
If they have a non-conference schedule, that's great, but I've never seen it promoted like that.
No. And look, it is everybody. Well, the thing is, everybody, for the most part, in the ACC has an SEC rival that they play most every year. And then you've got some really, really just good cross-conference games no matter what. But also, it's a weird flex because you go, well, what about your conference? How tough is that schedule?
No.
Like when you're done with those games, which are the minority of your games, are the majority of your games tough or not? And therein lies this is Dan Beebe era Big 12 stuff right there.
Yeah, I think that's, I guess what the group that helped organize Media Days and its promotion and its signage and all those things came up with as the best way to promote the brand is to highlight their tough non-conference schedules. I don't think I've ever seen anybody highlight that in particular. An individual team, sure, but the conference itself, no. And, yeah, it's kind of weird when that means that half the equation of that is non-ACC schools are what you're also promoting, because that's why it's the toughest non-conference schedules, right, because you're playing teams that aren't ACC schools. So, yeah, I don't know how well thought out that was. I don't know what the ACC was preparing for in terms of focus on them starting today and whether or not it's a bit more than maybe you thought it was going to be about a month ago just because of what all the rhetoric has turned into, online and whatnot. But you did have plans and committees and whatnot come together, like how are we going to pull off Media Days? And at some point somebody said, like, I think we should highlight the toughest non-conference schedule in the country. And I don't know, maybe there's some people out there that think that was a great thing to highlight, but I'm sure a lot of people had their fun with that yesterday because it is kind of wonky and not something you typically see talked about very much, and not the strongest of statements either, especially when people are looking at you to make nothing but strong statements over the next couple of days. Yeah. So, yeah, that was a little funny, and not sure how else we were supposed to take that, because certainly I don't think anybody was like, man, I can't wait to get on air today and talk about how tough the ACC non-conference schedules are. Instead, it's turned into just a point of being kind of poked at and made fun of. But, hey, if that's true, then highlight it. Use what you got. I mean, if those are the bullets that you got in your gun, then fire them off and make your noise, because the spotlight's on you right now, ACC, and I think Jim Phillips did that earlier today. I think we're really underselling the fact that today basically confirmed that you're getting 2 more years. I know we talked about it, but basically saying
that's how we started the show.
But I'm hammering it again that if there's anything for all this, let's make fun of the non-conference schedule or how shaky the foundation is like, well, the foundation's remaining, it looks like, for at least a couple more years, at least. And who the heck knows what all happens in that time frame. But certainly it's interesting times for that league and for Jim Phillips. And I know he had other things that he said as well that he got into, but we'll see. When the season rolls around, I look forward to testing their theory on whether they really had the toughest non-conference schedule or not, because a lot of that's based on where teams were the year prior and so on and so forth. But if they do have that, then flaunt it and go win a bunch of those games and kind of throw it back in the face of everybody who's talking about all the off-the-field stuff right now.
All right. We were able to chew on that for quite a lot. On Thursday's show, there was somebody in the chat that said, all you guys ever do is talk about Florida State. Florida State also allows us to need to talk about them.
That person is ignorant and doesn't listen to a bulk of the show. You listen to cutout segments. That's all you listen to, because otherwise you just be a dummy, because clearly that's not true. So, yeah, thanks for the comment, though.
Somebody also today said that has anyone other than Clemson and Virginia Tech ever won the ACC title? Clemson has 8. Florida State has 5. Virginia Tech won 3 early. And then there's like, let's see, is it Pittsburgh, maybe Boston College, and one other team that's won one each. But Clemson and Florida State have won 13 of the national titles since they started playing an ACC championship game. Now, there's other ACC title games, teams that won it back in the 50s, 60s, whenever it began.
Well, since Florida State joined in 91 or 92, Florida State and Clemson have won or shared 30 of those titles. And the only team that's won back-to-back titles is Virginia Tech, and the only teams that have won multiple titles other than that are Virginia Tech, and I want to say Maryland, who is not in the conference.
Well, I just gave the last 20.
Yeah, but like even before that, like it was, so it was.
Pitt was kind of an outlier a couple years ago, just out of nowhere. Because other than that, it's been year, basically Clemson the entire time, and Florida State last year. But Clemson had their dominant little run there for like a decade where
they won like 8 of 10. They won 5 in a row.
Pretty crazy. Now, are you going to? I know Jim Phillips made other comments. The basketball comment.
No, I don't have that one. No.
Okay, so I saw this. I think it was from Bud Elliott. Who's a Florida State guy. And I think one of the things that really bothers ACC folks, would you say, is the lack of promotion. Mm-hmm. We just talked about that, like the whole we don't have a fine bomb. Well, that's partly your fault and just partly the region's fault, I guess, that there's not somebody that's like that guy that speaks for the ACC and promotes them at will. But what is also a knock on the ACC when especially we're talking about big football-related stuff?
They care about basketball more.
They care about basketball more, and they care about basketball more, and they care about basketball more no matter what. It's basketball. It's Tobacco Road-driven, which makes the whole UNC thing quite interesting. But, yeah, Jim Phillips came out today and I guess was talking about basketball and strength of basketball, and it was Bud and I think various other people that I saw like, dude, it is football media days, and everybody is tuning in to hear your comments on football powers in your league who would wreck you if they left potentially, not because of their basketball programs, but because of football and football and football. And look, if you're a basketball league, like Brett York made a comment, I think probably once or twice, but now thinking back on it, he didn't talk a lot about basketball. No. He talked about football and the future and all those types of things. And I think that's where the ACC kind of has to be like, guys, basketball's great. You're really good. No one's denying that. But that's at risk if you don't take care of the football side of things. Because some of those people you're hanging your hat on could be out the door if the door swings open. Your North Carolinas, for example, which would change the whole identity of that conference in a major way. So that was another thing that I saw was just the time spent talking about basketball. Now, it might have been 45 seconds, but for some people, that was 45 seconds too long at football media days. And that's part of the whole, I think, kind of the disagreements that are happening is some people are looking at this and saying, guys, football, money, football, and they're still, it seems like, content on being old Tobacco Road and hanging their hat on basketball.
Yeah, I think that's like at the root of like an old problem in the ACC where North Carolina and Duke were so elite at basketball and so great that when it came down to decisions, they were making decisions, well, this is great for basketball, this will be this. Can you imagine this? And then you have schools like Clemson and Florida State who are football-first schools that are like, yeah, but football makes more money. And they're like, yeah, that'll all take care of itself, And they've made the effort since then, but that's like one of those old things, kind of – every conference has one, and the ACC's was they like basketball more. And you're Jim Phillips, like bragging about it at football media days, like, look, man, your basketball's great. And as a matter of fact, if Florida State left the basketball conference alone and stayed in football, the SEC wouldn't care. Like, they'd be like, oh, well, once every 4 years when you're good, we won't lose in Tallahassee. Great. The rest of the time, like, oh, well, that's one less place we got to go.
Yeah.
Rounding this out, just a couple of the other comments. He mentioned that the ESPN deal's not going anywhere. He talked a little bit about basketball, as I mentioned, which was, a brief thing. He talked a bit about the House settlement and just the ongoing legal issues. I don't think we really care, nor do we want to spend time right now diving into any of those things. And he, basically said, that there's obviously some situations ongoing right now, but that they're going to remain together and that they're strong. And I think, for as much as we're talking about all this here, and as much as clearly there's like a disruption going on, I think if you're an ACC fan who wants the league to stay together, you got about as strong a performance from Jim Phillips as you could have expected today. I mean, because what else could he really say? He can't say, like, yeah, screw Florida State.
You know what he did? He did the opposite of Kleofkoff.
Yes.
He actually had some meat on the bone.
Yes.
Well, he addressed
Kleofkoff
it.
never really did.
Yeah.
If he did, he actually never really even brought it up. And last year, unfortunately, without trying to bring up somebody that's a dead person basically in college athletics, he just like that. I thought Jim Phillips did everything he possibly could to defend the conference, set some things up, and move on.
Yeah, and for those worried, he said, hey, we're bigger than anyone's school, and, delivered those types of messages. And so for all of the talk that we've had over this first hour, I do think that also needs to be said is, you know what, we all wondered, how is he going to address things at the podium, and how are they going to talk about the issues at hand? And I think he touched on about everything, said what he could say, and could not say some things in some cases, but delivered a message that they're not going anywhere no matter who leaves the conference, and that they're strong no matter who leaves the conference. Now, you can disagree with that, maybe, and a lot of people would, depending on what that combination of schools would look like. But for what he could say, I think he was about as good as he could be given the situation.
All right, so there's a lot. It is ACC Media Days. It's the first. They have their 4 days, too. Last in Vegas, Big 12 had 2. 8 each day. Last week, the SEC had 4, and the ACC with their 4. By the way, Kim Coulter, Super Chat, thank you. As a football brand, which one has the highest value, Clemson or FSU?
I don't look at all those charts and the various measurements and all of that. I was hoping Paul would have that answer offhand.
Well,
I would say it's Florida State.
Himself.
I would say it's Florida State slightly.
Yeah,
but
I don't think it's a big difference.
I
I think
they're
you're
very,
splitting
very,
hairs, like,
I don't think you can split them apart.
It's not like Coke versus Pepsi, where Coke is clearly the more valuable brand, and Pepsi has to spend more on marketing, but they're still valuable.
Which they do, which they buy out every sports arena in America, fill it with Pepsi products. Boo. Although if you want to sponsor us, Wild Cherry is great. I love Wild Cherry Pepsi.
But to me, that's like saying it's Coke or Diet Coke. It's just on your preference, right?
Yeah. So somebody asked about, of the teams remaining in the Big 12, with everybody who's left, right? Mm-hmm. Who has the most Big 12 titles among those who are still a part of the conference?
Baylor.
TCU has 1. Colorado has the 1. TCU, Oklahoma State, Colorado each have 1. Baylor and Kansas State have 3.
Okay. Sorry, K-State. You just got the 1 2 years ago that tied that up. Yeah. My bad. RX, FSU was down in football for a lot of ways up until the last couple of years. They had the national title. Paul, was that 13 is when they won it?
Yeah.
Clemson has owned the postseason. So, and Clemson has had the run. The last 10 years, right after Florida State's national title, Clemson took off and went to a different level. 2016
was their last 10-win season before 2022. So between 2017 and 2022, they were awful.
Yeah, I would say, I think I don't know if you could. I would say initially, because of the Bowden years, Florida State's a bigger football brand. That's a long time ago. That's like bringing up the Osborne years.
Yeah, but those things
let me finish.
Yeah.
Clemson did win it in 1980, but Florida State had an unbelievable parts of the 80s and all of the 90s.
I would say that they've made themselves maybe a little bit ahead, because as great as Dabo's been, he's not iconic yet. Not to say that he won't be. He won a couple of national titles. You're sure as hell will be. But there's very few iconic coaches. It's, Bear Bryant and Osborne and Bowden and guys like that.
Guy who just retired?
Yeah, Saban. That are
him?
Yeah, that are icons. And so I think that maybe puts Florida State a little bit ahead as far as recognizability. But again, Dabo has 2 less national titles than Florida State does, and 1 less than Bobby did. So, it's not like he's that far off. He just needs more wins.
Got to make a call while we're live on the air. The Southland Conference media days are going on down in Houston. Colby Carthel can be on in the next segment, or we can have him on later in the show.
Let's get him next.
What do you want to do, Craig? All right, we'll break come back with that. We have Michael Bishop, former Kansas State star. He's in the College Football Hall of Fame today in the 4 o'clock hour. David Teal covering the ACC Media Days from the Richland Times-Dispatch. And John Talty from 247 Sports wrote a hell of an article with Brandon Marcello about the ACC having an identity problem. He's stuck on a tarmac. He hopefully will land in time for us to get him on in the 5 o'clock hour. This is 365 Sports.
It's the heat of summer, but the real heat is what you're cooking on the grill, smoker or oven. Waco Custom Marketplace can be your go-to playmaker for summertime grilling. You can't go out and eat? Be your own chef. Custom ordered, cut ribeyes, sirloins, fillets, New York strips. Focus on high-quality beef at a competitive price. Waco Custom Marketplace has fresh deli cuts with sliced turkey, ham, pepperoni, or corned beef. Fresh seafood, salmon, shrimp, mahi-mahi, live lobsters, and great priced chicken products, whole birds, tenders, chicken breast, and wings. Smoked items unique to Waco, house-made bacon, summer sausage, boudin, hot links, and German sausage. Every seasoning for every meal or occasion, grilling, baking, or frying. Your hometown grocery store with canned goods, pastas, fresh baked bread, buns and chips, sauce, condiments to pickles, charcoal, and lighter fluid, cold beer and wine. The best kolaches in Waco, mouth-watering cinnamon rolls, here for you in the community, helping avoid the long lines and crowded stores. Serving quality local products to the Waco community and beyond. Go online for more of the weekly values on their Facebook page. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Make this the summer of Ram at Allen Samuels in Waco. Drive home in a 2025 Ram 1500 Lone Star for just 2.9% for 72 months, with no payments for 90 days. Plus, first responders get an extra $500 off at Allen Samuels.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Let the journey to financial brilliance begin with Genco's limited time offers. Max your earnings with a Kasasa cash account and get paid monthly with a 4.25 APY. That's $425 annually. Then invest in a 13-month share certificate and earn 4.9 APY. That's $529. Earn cash and outshine the rest. At Genco, we offer you the sun and the moon. Kasasa based on average daily balance of $10,000. Certificate based on $10,000 investment. See GencoFCU.org for details. NCUA.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Media days for several different conferences. One of them, the Southland Conference, which has a toe or two inside the state of Texas, including my alma mater, Stephen F. Austin, Colby Carthel, head coach, leaving Houston from their media days and back in the Southland Conference. Coach, thank you. On with Craig and Paul. And I as you know, Smokey, in the end, first of all, how's traffic in Houston?
Well, I'm not quite there yet. I'm in between San Antonio and Houston, so good time to get this call in because traffic in Houston sometimes tough, but I get a little road rage on the radio.
Well, hey, we're fine with that. That'd be great radio.
I'm rooting for that, actually.
Yeah. So, Colby, why the Southland Conference? We had your new AD on and kind of discussed that, but what was the reason behind it?
I think it just makes sense for us to come home. The WAC had kind of fallen apart in terms of there were 7 teams in our geographical footprint that had left for whatever reasons, and so it just made a lot of sense. And a lot of times in college athletics these days, people are making decisions that don't make sense, but it made sense for us to come home. We're in a gas tank league now, so every game we play, we went from 3 flights to 0 flights, which is great for our student athletes. It's great for our fans and families of our kids. And so there's a lot of benefit to that. But really and truly, we got a new president, Dr. Neil Weaver. He's doing some big things with your alma mater and growing this university. And so now every single game we play, all 12 games we play, are going to be in the geographical footprint of where our students are, potential students. And that allows us to, get the SFA brand out there and go recruit us some more Lumberjacks, football players and general students alike.
Are you relieved that you're in that situation, given that there was, could go into this conference or doing that, like all that? Is it make it a lot easier for you guys and just you emotionally to have to not deal with all that right now?
It is. There was a lot of, questions is what are we doing, where we're going, and this gives us some great stability. And that's one thing that, is hard to find right now in college athletics is stability. And we're in probably the most stable conference, maybe in FCS, and for sure the conference that geographically makes the most sense, maybe at any level. I don't know that there's a better footprint of an overall conference than the Southland Conference right now for all sports. And so that's good for us. It's good for our programs, good for our university, and again, really good for the student athletes. And that's what we all have a job for. And so now when we play on the road, we've got some people that are able to travel with us, and parents and family and friends are able to catch games that they wouldn't normally do when we're playing all over the country.
Colby, what's the offseason been like for SFA football, and how quickly did it go by to all of a sudden look up and see, hey, we're going to media days. It's time to start, getting the drums going and getting the promotion going for this upcoming season?
It's been a great off season. We didn't have the year we wanted to last year. We ended up 3-8, and that's really the first losing season I've had. Where we just didn't finish games and didn't stop on one drive or didn't punch it in on another. And 5 games that ended up that way. That's the difference between 3-8 and 8-3. But our guys really, bought in. We only had one player leave, underclassman in the portal, and he didn't even play a snap last fall. So that. I think our culture is right in the locker room, and then our kids embrace that East Texas stuff, kind of get back to who we are, kind of that red dirt mindset. And I was very impressed with them this offseason. We added a new offensive coordinator. We're going to pick the pace up a little bit there and rip that thing, grip it and rip it down the field. So it went by in a hurry, but it was a great offseason for the Lumberjacks. You
mentioned about not all decisions in college athletics are for the good. What are the ones you wish never happened?
I wish they would put some parameters on how much damage it's doing to kids graduating. I'm a firm believer. College football and college athletics is about obtaining a degree, and I know there's NIL, and that's great. I'm all for that. There ought to be some revenue sharing, but we got to put some guardrails on this thing, because the thing you don't hear about is last report I heard, 56% of the players in the transfer portal never end up graduating. And bottom line, football's going to end, basketball's going to end. The ball's going to stop bouncing or spinning or snapping or whatever. You better get through college athletics with a degree. Use college athletics. Don't let college athletics use you. And I think making it such a freewheeling, transfer every semester, we got to figure that piece out.
Colby Carthel, head coach at SFA, with us on 365 Sports. Colby, what about the future of the FCS schools. What about the future of those in the Southland Conference or your school or others? Even the FBS, the group of five, as some people don't like to be called, but that's kind of right now a part of that chunk of teams. As everything grows bigger, faster, stronger, are you concerned about where it's going and where your school or your conference will be when it comes to trying to win a national title?
I'm not really. I'm ready for it to, speed up and get to where it's going. I think the Power 4, and some people say the Power 2, but, when they decide to take their ball and go home, the sooner the better, in my opinion. And now the rest of us,
I think we lost him for a second.
Sports now, let's call it what it is, employees, and let them move on and do their thing, and then let the dust settle and let's play our brand of football.
Colby, how big a deal was that to continue the rivalry with ACU?
Oh, the ACU game is a big one for us, to have an in-state rival like that. We've had some great games over the last, 4 or 5 years since I've been here and really developed a good rivalry with those guys. Coach Patterson does a great job with that program. It's good people involved with that school. So we were tickled to death to pick that series back up. They'll be at our place this year, and we'll head out to Abilene next year.
You mentioned that you don't lose a lot, and you did, and you mentioned kind of what happened. How hard was that on you?
To keep the guys or the ones we lost a few years ago?
I'm talking about wins and losses, that you don't have many teams that you don't have too many losing records on your career resume. What was that like?
Well, it was different, and the way I see it, it's only a losing season if you don't learn from it, and we did learn some lessons. And like I say, I was a little bit slow to embrace the portal, as a head coach. And, but you can't just have people taking and never adding. And so this year we got pretty aggressive with it. We're still going to base and build our program on high school players from the great state of Texas. You're going to cut them open, they bleed purple. But we went out and really improved our roster here during the month of May. We got 3 guys from Baylor, as a matter of fact, right there in your neck of the woods. And so some guys that have played and produced there that I think will be able to make us a big hand as well. So, losing it is what it is. It's your first chance to learn and grow and turn failures into positives, which I think this fall you'll see the Lumberjacks do that.
Colby, who are some of the players that you'd like to highlight? Obviously, not trying to ignore anybody, but who are some of the guys that people are going to, you think, get to know and know pretty well this season? And what's just sort of the messaging been like in terms of the team and getting ready for this year?
Ryan, I think we've got a big-time running back room that's going to have a big year. Jarrell Wembley's our returning starter. Anthony Williams was the male athlete of the year at SFA. And then we added Quaylon Jones, who transferred in from Baylor. That's going to be a big group with a big year. I think Jordan Neighbors, who transferred in from Baylor as well, has got a chance, what I've seen from him so far this summer, to have an impact in our vertical passing game. Defensively, I think we've got a really talented secondary. Jeremiah Walker, Bruce Harmon, 2 preseason, accolade guys that are NFL prospects, both have their degree and chose to come back. And then Ed Bobineau is a big-time defensive tackle out of Huntsville that was a first-team all-conference player last year, and I expect him to have a big year as well for the Lumberjacks.
So how many of your players at your level at SFA, how many of the schools, if you have somebody that stands out, is being tampered with?
Woo! Just about every one of those guys I just talked to. In fact, one of them, I won't even name him because I don't want the pressure on him, but it's a position that's highly recruited, so you can kind of figure that out. But I mean, it's the Wild Wild West. He had a plainclothes coach go to his home and find his mom and offer her $40,000 cash and $150 in the transfer if he gets in the portal in terms of NIL. And so it goes on. It's unfortunate, it's disgusting, but I think we've got a pretty good culture here. These guys communicate with me. I try to help them out all I can. I mean, I don't have that kind of money, but our NIL is the way it's supposed to be. It's a reward. We don't recruit with it. We reward with it. And guys that stay, we use it for retention more so than anything else. And so guys that do right on the field, help us win football games, but also take care of their business in the classroom, in the community, those are the guys that are getting some NIL help, and that's the way this whole thing should have been. But money corrupts, and unfortunately, you've seen that across college athletics.
I want to clarify what you said. You said that a coach offered the player $40,000 and then promised $150,000 in NIL if he was to enroll at that specific school?
Yes, sir. So $40,000 cash to his mom, not to him.
Okay, so
but, I mean, they're working the mom to get to him.
We've had Jeff Traylor on, G.J. Kinney on, Eric Morris on from UNT as well. And we've asked this question before. If, in fact, there's like evidence of tampering, is there enough tampering going both ways that nobody will ever turn somebody else in?
Well, it's just a matter of the NCAA is toothless right now. I mean, it's, the guy that leads the SEC, that's who leads college athletics, in my opinion, Greg Sankey. But, okay, I've got hard evidence, proof of tampering. I can turn that in, and the NCAA will get to that in about 4 or 5 years. That they're just understaffed, they're underfunded, they don't want to get sued, so they're not messing with it. So unethical people are doing unethical things to gain an advantage, and so it's happening, and we've got to deal with it. You've got to work out in front of it. You've got to educate your players, and, the guys got to make decisions. And again, it comes down to a maturity level and what are you playing for and what is your end game in college. And our culture and what our kids are doing. And so I'm proud of them and the decisions they've made and working to get that degree first. And then I try to redshirt everybody. And I know darn good and well I'm redshirting them for somebody else. Because if they end up being the type of player they are, they're going to get their degree and then go play that 5th year and go make 6 figures. And I mean, who wouldn't want that? So I hope it gets in vogue to stay, get your degree, and then go play an extra year, and make some money if the good Lord bless you with that ability.
Colby, drive safely. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
You too. Colby Carthel, head coach at SFA. $40,000 to the mother, $150,000 NIL to the player if he transferred to said school.
Yeah.
And that's the guy from SFA. Now, SFA's produced some NFL players, but that's...
Well, look, it's, and not to, this is the best, it's the AAA for the other schools, right? And look, this kid's clearly developed. He's clearly fast. He's got measurables that we want. We didn't, when he was 190-pound stick figure of a wide receiver, we didn't really mess with him. And then he went to SFA and he discovered protein shakes and chicken breasts. And, he had a regular workout routine and all these other things. And, oh, crap, look, he can play now. So we want him. So that's what they do. Yeah, it's one of those things where, like he said, okay, 4 or 5 years if they're going to get to it on the tampering case, well, then the kid that you're mad about's already gone and helped the other team, maybe won a bunch, and everybody's kind of forgotten about it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I like the protein shakes and chicken breasts.
Yeah, that's what they load. Peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
Protein, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, when we come back, Hall of Famer Michael Bishop, former Kansas State star. He is in college football's Hall of Fame. I think I saw a picture of him at the Texas High School Coaches Association going on down in San Antonio. Dave Aranda spoke there along with numerous coaches. There was a picture, I think, of between 18 and 20 head coaches of college football teams in Texas as they all have their different sessions, speaking engagements, coaching X's and O's and diagrams and much more. We'll hear a little note from him, too. All of that. This is 365 Sports. IdealMRI.com in the Central Texas marketplace. I just mentioned that coaches have their film sessions or whatever, X's and O's, when they're at this coaching convention, at the high school coaches convention in San Antonio. They have evidence. When you play in a game, the film doesn't lie. Whether you made a block, missed an assignment, whatever you did, the film the next day can be torturous or it can be very fulfilling. It's the same thing when it comes to an MRI. They have a state-of-the-art imaging machine. Dr. Rob Maxey and his group of partners put together Ideal MRI that's been around now for many years, and they can do 2 things. Find out through an MRI, through imaging, what is wrong with you. Muscle, ligament, whatever it might be, and they will never charge. at least they haven't charged, and I don't see any time it's going to change, $497 or less every single time. That's amazing. The average MRI is around $1,100. Ideal MRI is located inside the Central Texas Marketplace, the southern part of I-35 in Waco. They have the state-of-the-art technology to find out and what your doctor needs to know so they can make a diagnosis and help you with whatever the next move might be. Your back, your knee, wherever. And $497 every time at idealmri.com.
Y'all listen up. Let me tell you something about group meals from Rudy's Barbecue. It's got all you need for all the folks you gotta feed, smoked meat, sides, and more. There's everything down to the tablecloth, just like the one that you see at the store. At a bridal shower, it's better than flowers. In a long business meeting, it'll pass the hours. It'll feed all the cousins at a family function. It's better than potluck at a church luncheon. Next time you need to feed 10 or more, call and order a Rudy's group meal.
Next in line. With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoke. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets, sirloin steaks, bone-in ribeyes, boneless ribeyes, and even prime rib. Cut specifically the way you want, the thickness that you want. They're all delicious. They have Norwegian salmon, mahi-mahi, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey, variety of cheese, and several options of sausage links, and even regular jalapeno or cheese snack sticks, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, and ground beef, marinated beef or chicken fajitas, and always large briskets and tri-tip available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and tradition continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, a full-service butcher shop and bakery, open Monday through Saturday. The Bauer family, Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION Solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
Want to send a message to the show? Jump in the Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue chat room.
Michael Bishop, one of the more dynamic players to ever play in college football, both at Blinn but also Kansas State, now a high school coach, and was at Texas High School Coaches Association in San Antonio. Last year, he was entered into the College Football Hall of Fame. He joins us with Craig and Paul, David Smoke, 365 Sports. What is it like? You're a part of that coaching profession now. What's it like to be at that convention? And also, I think you bumped into Willie Fritz. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. The coaching world is going good. It's always good when you're surrounded with some good student athletes. It makes it a whole lot easy. But I'm glad I'm glad I'm around the group that I'm around. Had a great time here in San Antonio and got to visit with a bunch of coaches, a bunch of coaches across the state of Texas. Share some great information, learn some great things. But to top it off, got a chance to catch up with Coach Fritz again. I see him all the time at the University of Houston when I'm down there, but got a chance to catch up with him and talk football and talk about blend days and it's always a pleasure anytime we're in the same room because we'll find each other if we know that one of us is in the room and it's that blend connection and I love it every time it happens.
He obviously had a really nice run at Tulane. We know what he did at Blinn. What makes Willie Fritz so successful that Houston can look forward to?
Well, he's different from a lot of coaches, and I joke when I say this. I tell the kids all the time, "You guys are lucky. You guys have the Coach Fritz that's winding down. I had the Coach Fritz that was rah, jump in your face, get you going, take your shirt off, sing, start a song, and he was in tune with what the guys was doing at that time that he was coaching. Now, he's seasoned. He's been there, he's done that. He's turned some great programs around. And made them relevant. For University of Houston, he did the same thing. Everywhere he's went, he's been a winner. That's what's important. And University of Houston is getting a winner. They're getting a guy that's going to be dedicated. They're getting a guy that's going to work the kids, not overwork them, but it's going to work the kids, hold them, make sure they're accountable, and make them reach a whole nother level. And that's what it's all about. And that's what Houston is getting in Coach Fritz.
Michael, what is your your path in the coaches convention when you're trying to soak up all that knowledge? Do you can you get to everything you want to? Because I know they've got a ton of stuff available. So what's it like for you taking in all that information?
Well, you know what? You'll never get to everything you want to get to because there's so much. There's so much knowledge in there. There's so many new connections. There's so many relationships that old and new, and that takes up a lot of time. So you're good if you can work the floor and go to all these different exhibits and listen and take notes and say, hey, my school would love to have this and get all the information, do the PO orders and all those things. That takes time. And when you go to a convention, there's so many guys there that want to learn from you, and there's so many guys that you can learn from. It makes it tough because, you feel like you're missing out on something. But you're in a great situation. You're seeing new things and meeting new people, and that's what it's all about. I mean, at the end of the day, everybody loves football, and of course it's about football and it's about all other sports, but the relationships and the connections you make in there is tremendous.
What are you most excited about when it comes to your own team as we start to get closer towards the start of the regular season?
Man, I'm excited because, once the season winds down and kids go to different sports, then you got the kids that stay in football and off-season workout. You see the growth. You see who wants to be the leader, who wants to be the captain of the new squad for the next season. You see all those kids develop. Some of them that you see, take a step back, and that's part of the process as well. But for me, I'm just excited to be in the building, to be around football, to be around the kids that love to work, to be around kids that are taking on a demeanor that I have, and as I am a winner, I'm here to win. I'm going to win. That right there is exciting for me because I see in some of my players what I have in myself, and sometimes it's scary because sometimes they go too hard, but I'd rather them go hard than not go at all.
So we mentioned Willie Fritz, and you saw him down at coaching school. Also to have been impacted by the great Bill Snyder, who rebuilt Kansas State from nothing to what they were, and then again did it again. What can you say about Bill Snyder and being a part of that?
well, I can say, a lot about Coach Snyder, but one of the key things that I'm going to say about him is that determination. And, he took on a program that nobody knew about, nobody cared about. They got lucky if they had 35 people in the stands when he took that job. To see, and I only see this through film, and and whenever they run the story of how K-State was when he got there, and it is a great story, a great turnaround when you see the beginning, and then you see it get better. Each year it gets better, and then I get an opportunity to go there. And when I was there, we was one of the top teams in the nation. So I had a chance to be around somebody who not only loved the game, appreciated the game, but taught us that you might not get credit. Let's go take the credit. And I think that's what he did with the program and turned it around. And it's a hard act to follow because Kleiman has been doing a great job. Somehow, some way, they get guys to come into Manhattan, Kansas, and play well. Year in and year out. A lot of people don't give them the respect that they deserve, but they in every ball game. And I will always be indebted to Kansas State University and Coach Snyder for giving me that opportunity to be a part of something great. And so much respect. Shout out to Coach Snyder. I have nothing but great things to say about it.
Michael, you mentioned that team in '98 that was so close, and then, of course, the heartbreaking loss to A&M. How much did that stick with you for after that, and how close you guys were?
Well, when you're playing quarterback, you have to have that mind frame where it's the next play mentality. I live by that. I know a lot of people, mostly fans, they say, hey, I was broke my heart. You broke my heart in 1998, and I say, well, okay, what's the next play? Did you stop living or did you carry on the next day? How long did you think about that? So that's the mind frame that I always been set in. I would love to win every game that I'm a part of, but I know you can't win them all. As long as you do your best and you keep moving forward, that's the main thing for me. But I get the outside of it where, where the fans, they want a national title. They want this, they want that. And sometimes you get there, sometimes you don't. Unfortunately, we came up, a couple plays short, and that's part of the game as well. So I look at it and I take it and I say, hey, you know what? I was in the right place at the right time, because if I wasn't there, I would have missed out on something great. And that's still with relationships and friendships, and it's bigger than just winning the ball game.
Since 1994, and I may be off by like one number here or there, but since 1994, I think Kansas has beaten Kansas State 4 times in that time period. It is an absolute run of dominance, with the exception of early 2000s. KU won like 4 or 5 or something along those lines, Michael. You weren't a part of those losses. You're part of a lot of wins. What's it like to see Kansas and Kansas State becoming kind of the rivalry on the football field that it's starting to become, because you have these 2 great coaches who have their programs moving in such strong directions? I don't know if it was that heated when you were around, but what's it like to see that?
Well, it was definitely heated. When I was playing in those, I had a chance to play against KU twice. A lot of noise talking, a lot of But for the kids that's from Kansas, it's the challenge of I get to hold up that cup at the end of the game, and it's big for those guys. But K-State and KU, every year, the Kansas fans circle that game. That's a game that they want to see their team win. Fortunate enough for K-State, they've been taking care of their business. But I will say this: I keep up with a lot of football. KU has their team on the rise. They have some tremendous athletes there. They've been doing a good job of recruiting in these past couple of years. K-State has to play their best game. KU has to play their best game. And the best team on that day is going to come out with the victory.
Michael, you played for the Patriots for a while when you were a young player and a rookie in the NFL. And early on in Bill Belichick's career, early on in Tom Brady's career, you also got to work with Charlie Weiss, who was the offensive coordinator. Brian Daboll was a young assistant at that time. How much of you as a coach is formulated from even that short time around Bill Belichick, Brian Daboll, and coaches like that. And, not to mention Tom Brady and Drew Bledsoe and longtime quarterback John Freese was on that team as well.
Yes. Well, I think anywhere you go in life, you meet certain people and you take something from each one of those people. That's what I've done. Even in my time in the CFL, arena ball, and all that, I've always remembered those lessons, sitting in the meeting room and seeing how certain people break things down, or how do you read this progression. So there's a lot of things that you take from every situation that you're in, and you try to twist it and make it to the best of your ability so you can share it with the next generation. I think I've been able to do that in my young coaching career, with the young kids. And I do understand that you have to understand these young kids, this new generation, in order for them to be great. Because if you're out of touch with reality, you just words to these young guys, and it takes more than that, especially nowadays with all these distractions. Especially nowadays with, the way the NIL is coming in. You got kids in high school, that's all they think about. It's not about, hey, I want to go to this school because of the education, or I want to go to this school because of the offense. Now it's turned into, I want to go to this school because this is what they just offered the last guy. And at some point we got to turn that around. We got to get back to the old days where I'm going ahead, I'm going to stick it out for 4 years. I'm going to battle. If I win a job, I win a job. If I don't, I got to keep working.
One of those young guys that you're coaching, that you're mentoring at Legacy, the School of Sports Sciences, is Keyshawn Henderson, who is committed to Houston. Big-time athlete, Michael, highly rated. A lot of schools after him, including Willie Fritz and the Cougars. But what can you just tell us about that young man, his upside, and just kind of what you've seen and what you hope to see?
That's a special young man. Before he touches a football field, he's a great kid in the classroom. Academically, he's well, he's well above a lot of kids that's in his range, and that stands out. Number one, when you talk about him on the football field, he's amazing. He's able to do some things that, Lamar Jackson, Pat Mahomes, he's able to do some of those things that those guys are doing at a young age right now. So the sky's the limit on his potential. I just try to do a great job of keeping him, honed in. And I told him recently here, a couple of days ago, I was like, hey, you know what? You may have a bright future, but we got to take this one day at a time, and every day you got to work. And I think that's what sets him apart. He has all the athletic ability in the world, but he's a grinder. And that, you got some young guys in high school that once they get all these offers and they commit or they go to all these camps and they get ranked 4 or 5 stars or whatnot, they forget what got them there. They forget to work and they get complacent and satisfied. He's not at that level. He's at the level where he's saying, Coach, I got to get better. What can I do today to get better? And that's what I appreciate and love about that young man.
Michael, I wanted to ask you this last time we had you on, but it's been about a little over a year now since we lost the Croc Bull, Big Pokey, and I know he was an offensive lineman for you at Blinn. Were there any memories that y'all had off the field that you could share, or what was it like to just play behind Big Pokey?
Milton Powell, and I can hear Coach Fritz calling him Milton Powell right now. When I first came to Blinn, I didn't know anything about, the screw music, the rap style that they was doing at the time, but I got to see a free concert every Thursday night on campus at Blinn College, which was amazing because you don't think about it when you're young, but to see him choose music and not football. Now, what people don't know is he was a great football player, offensive lineman. Did everything that he needed to do, and I thought he could have played at the next level. Just by being around him and having him block for me, open up holes for the running backs. I don't think he gave up a sack the whole time that I played with him. Well, I know he didn't. But, going forward, I've had opportunities to sit and visit with him once we were done playing ball before he passed away. And, it just to sit and listen to how, people grow and what they're thinking once they're older. We talking about kids, talking about family, talking about relationships, and he to me he was a soft-spoken guy, really a gentle giant, to be honest. But, you know, I was amazed by how he was able to take, you know, really how he was able to put football to the side and just take up his rap career. Because at the time, I'm like, man, you got to go play football. You can make it there. But, you know, he knew what he wanted to do, and he did a great job of doing it. The city of Houston, you know, they loved everything that he put out there. You know, when he passed, when he was doing a concert and collapsed, you know, it was a shock. You know, it was a sad moment. And, you know, I went to a service, and the amount of people that showed up to show respect, you know, it speaks volumes. So I will always, you know, have a spot in my heart for him, and you know, what he did as a football player, but what he did as a human being and how he carried himself as well.
So what was it like to watch you have your young star that Craig brought up. What was it like to watch your alma mater with DJ Lagway, who's now at Florida, and watching him grow through his career?
You know, it's always special when you know the team and the high school that you grew up fighting for and you know, blood, sweat, and tears on those same fields. And when you get a chance to come back and watch the young men, you know, because young men from the neighborhood, I know all those kids on the team, so get a chance to watch them put up great numbers, you know, win games, go undefeated, go to playoffs. You know, I enjoy watching those because anytime that we had a game and I couldn't watch, I'm always jumping on the huddle watching that game. So I never missed a game by watching it through huddle, and I was able to go watch them play 4 times during the season. I was there in San Antonio when they played against DeSoto, and you know, started out with a bang. But at the end of the day, I think DeSoto did a great job of adjusting, and they made him change up his game. And that was the only time all year that a team made an adjustment in order to make somebody else beat them instead of, you know, the Lagway show. But he's a great kid, great family, smart kid. You know, he chose Florida. You know, he's in a good situation. I hope he gets a chance to play. But if he doesn't, you know, you're in a great situation to learn. You know, I guess the guy at Mertz is there. You know, hopefully he's been a great teammate and teaching him what he knows and what helping him out anytime he has questions. You know, I love to see kids go out and do well. I think he's going to do well. You know, if he get a chance to play. And, you know, I tell him all the time, just don't rush it. Let it come to you. You've been playing this game your whole life. It's just faster. So enjoy every moment and make the best of every moment.
Last thing, and we've had you on a handful of times, and Michael, we do appreciate your time. One of the best I've ever seen play the game. When you were inducted officially last December into the National Football Foundation, the College Football Hall of Fame, and your name was mentioned and you were introduced, what was that moment like for you? What did it mean to you?
You know, for me, it was a great moment because I knew how hard my parents worked. I knew the sacrifice they made just so I can have an opportunity to play football. I knew all the traveling that they did, you know, the money that they put back just so I can go to camps. You know, I reflected on all those moments, and it wasn't about football at that point. But once my name was called, I was like, oh, my goodness. They say that I am College Football Hall of Fame. You know, so I never you know, when you're growing up, you say I want to go to the NFL. I want to do this. This is my favorite team. No one ever talks about, I want to be a great college football player and I want to go into the College Football Hall of Fame. And when all that happened, you know, as I look across the room, I see Reggie Bush, I see Tim Tebow, I see Dwight Freeney, I see a great group of athletes that are called Hall of Famers. And to be able to be in that room and be in that position was one of the best feelings in my life. But I know that without, you know, the big man upstairs and all the sacrifices that I had to make, my parents had to make, and with the credit with all my teammates that I've ever played with and the guys that I played against that made me, you know, become a better competitor. You know, I thanked all of those guys because I didn't do it on my own, and I know I didn't. But I was glad to be in the building. I was glad to hear them call my name and say, welcome to the class of 2023 College Football Hall of Fame.
You were absolutely earned that opportunity, that honor. Michael, always great to have you on the show. Thanks for responding when we reach out to you. Enjoy San Antonio, and also good luck with your football team this fall.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you guys for having me on. And like always, anytime I'm a phone call away.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate it.
Michael Bishop, Kansas State, Blinn. Willie Fritz had him at Blinn. You think about Cam Newton was at Blinn, and he was dynamic. And what Kansas State, and we know the story with Bill Snyder. We know the story there. It's crazy what he did twice. The first time was perhaps the greatest rebuilding job of all time.
I promise you that if you were there on like day one of them warming up when he and Tom Brady were in the same training camp, you'd be like,
oh yeah,
Bishop.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the guy. And look, Tom Brady made himself into Tom Brady, obviously. And Michael Bishop, probably also was a guy playing 20 years too early in the NFL. Right now, there's a lot of Michael Bishop type players, Patrick Mahomes is a Michael Bishop type player. Aaron Rodgers is kind of even that, even though he's older, roll out, just chuck it and go, kind of a thing. So yeah, he was so fun to watch. So fun to watch.
He was electric, no question about it.
Yeah, he was great and one of the best players in Big 12 history, certainly. One of the obviously best players in K-State history as well, and one of the most fun players I was able to watch growing up. So it's cool to be able to talk to him, and he's running his own program, and Keyshawn Henderson is a big-time player. He's just a 2026 guy, though, so he's still got a little bit of a ways, and if Willie Fritz can somehow keep him locked in for a couple of years while all these other schools are beating down his door, then that'll be a hell of a job by Fritz, because it sure seems like that young man's going to be a big-time player. He's already ranked as a 4-star. And so I guess, about 2 years that you're hanging on to him, if at all possible. But I think that'll be easier said than done, because he's apparently really, really good. So who better than Michael Bishop to have another superb athlete and kind of show him the way. So you heard him have some comments on just, who he is and what he needs to continue to focus on and things like that. But Keyshawn Henderson's definitely a name to watch, and yeah, that's a Michael Bishop guy there.
That's that guy. Willie Fritz looking for a dog or two, and he found one, it looks like, with what he has from Michael Bishop's team out in Houston. When we come back, he's at ACC Media Days. David Teal, the Richmond Times-Dispatch, on what has been an interesting start to their 4 days. This is 365 Sports.
Dr. Kent Petty and PettyClinicLowT.com can help you become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and used to be. Dr. Petty has special interest in testosterone replacement therapy for low T, and currently offering immediate same-day access for lab screening to help identify those men in need. Some of the symptoms of low T: fatigue, loss of energy, poor sexual performance, ED, loss of even sexual decreased muscle mass and strength, weight gain, excess body fat, depression, moodiness, poor sleep, insomnia, poor mental focus. Go to PettyClinicLowT.com, click on the email and or phone number, and get in touch with them and tell them I sent you. Dr. Petty will then set you up to get your blood work, get the results, and if your testosterone level is too low, he can put you in a program so you can become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, used to be, at PettyClinicLowT.com.
Celebrate American quality and value during the Red, White, and Blue sales tag event at Richard Carr. Drive the best. Get professional-grade power and first-class interior in a GMC Sierra. Qualified buyers save $9,000 on all 2024 GMC Sierra SLT models in stock with qualified trade-in. Military and first responders save an extra $500. Plus, find Red, White, and Blue savings tags on vehicles all over the lot. Drive home American quality and value during our Red, White, and Blue sales tag event at Richard Carr GMC.
Richard Carr, they have the truck for you.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
To Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student-athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student-athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student-athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now, here's David Smoke, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoke.
We have discussed quite, especially the first basically 40 minutes of this show. The ACC Media Days began. We had some quotes from Jim Phillips. We discussed Florida State, Clemson, and much, much more. David Teal, the Richmond Times-Dispatch, who's been our guy and go-to when it comes to a lot of things ACC, joins us on 365 Sports with Paul Craig, and I'm David Smoke. David, thanks for your time. How did you think Jim Phillips performed today?
Quite well. He was as assertive and substantive, guys, as I have ever heard him. And frankly, that's exactly what he needed to be. The people who care about this league and want to see it thrive for the long term needed to see him fight. And I thought he fought today.
David, there's things that he cannot control. He can't control what's going on in the courts. And I'm sure he has no idea about what other schools might feel similar to Florida State and Clemson or feel that they have options like that. But do you see a way forward where they could lose 2 to 4 schools max and then keep it together and maybe add, 4 schools to get them back to where they are?
It depends on what schools they were. Florida State and Clemson would probably be 2, but if you talk about North Carolina being in that group, then things get a little dicey for the viability of the league. You might be looking at a reformation in a much smaller conglomeration. There are so many possibilities that anyone who tells you that they know how this might play out, I think is fibbing to you.
David, did that translate over to the ACC media floor? Like just in terms of talking to your fellow reporters and just seeing the coaches and play, like what was sort of the vibe? Did it have a different feel to it because there's all of this uncertainty, or was it sort of business as usual? How would you describe it?
Well, it is a different vibe for several reasons. Yes, the uncertainty, but also the newcomers.
Right.
Now, we didn't hear from Cal and Stanford today, but we did hear from FSU and Rhett Lashley and 3 of his players. And guys, the Mustangs are here to win and win immediately. within a calendar year of the announcement that SMU is joining the ACC, the school athletics raised $159 million. That's an unprecedented haul in one calendar year nationally. No one raises that kind of money. But when you have oil barons among your alumni and boosters, and they get jazzed about moving up into a power conference for the first time since the old Southwest Conference's demise, you're going to get that kind of money.
Yeah, they've made their entrance very clear and have done it emphatically. We've had their AD, Rick Hart. We've also had Rhett Lashley on. I think tomorrow we're going to have one of their football players on the show too. David, with FSU being the loudest in the room, and Clemson's kind of been a part of at least saying, hey, we're a little bit unhappy too. How would you describe Florida State among how everybody else in the ACC looks at them?
I think they're a little exhausted with Florida State because this isn't the first time that Florida State has voiced its displeasure. This is the loudest and perhaps the most dangerous isn't the right word, but just threatening to the league's future. And do Florida State and FSU want more money? Yes. Is the ACC working with them in an attempt to bridge that much discussed revenue gap? Absolutely. As Jim Phillips revealed today, if you go win the national championship in football, you can earn up to $25 million beyond your standard distribution. You can, moreover, with the expansion, the ACC expects to generate another $600 million over the course of the ESPN contract. That's another $50 million plus a year for the league. So it's not like the conference is standing still. And when you hear some of those numbers, you wonder, why are they so emphatic? Why are they so insistent that they want to leave? I think Clemson is a totally different case. I think the tenor is different. I think the intent is different. But we'll see.
How much of Florida State's situation is fueled by the playoff snub and maybe making them act a little bit more irrationally than they would otherwise, speaking and knowing how that university works quite well as an alum?
A lot. I'm not sure, guys. Was it always going to come to a lawsuit? Maybe. But there is no question that December 22nd happened, the day they filed the lawsuit, happened a lot faster because of that playoff snub. They were livid. And by the way, I do not blame them. They should have made the playoff, but I do not blame the ACC. I do not blame Jim Phillips. I blame the selection committee. They're the ones that made the decision.
David, he had a pretty strong statement on ESPN. As you know, there's so much conversation about the future and what all that looks like, but said our partnership with ESPN isn't going away. You had that tweet out there. Was that something you expected him to address, and was it as, you think, satisfactory of an answer as he could have given the circumstances? Just how did you sort of view the ESPN comment he made?
I thought it was as direct as he could have been. He was asked specifically about the opt-out clause that ESPN has in 2027 to exit the deal, which does extend till 2036, and that was his response. It is not going away, and he's in the room with Jimmy Pitaro and the other ESPN suits. We'll see if he reads that room correctly.
Do you believe that if, in fact, Florida State and Clemson were to become free agents, that neither the Big Ten or the SEC would want them?
I don't know that. I don't believe they are extremely interested at this point, just because they're trying to navigate their own expansions, Texas and Oklahoma, USC and Washington and Oregon and UCLA. But my sense is those leagues are content, and Florida State and Clemson especially don't bring much market-wise to the SEC. Would they to the Big Ten? Yes. But then it becomes awfully unwieldy. At least 20 schools, they go even more. I just have serious doubts about them landing in either of those two conferences. But you never say never in realignment.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
There's always that.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons our show grew from what it was to where it is now, because constant churning of speculation, and so much of it became true.
Well, guys, a year ago, who would have dreamt that Stanford and Cal would be members of the Atlantic Coast Conference?
Right, yeah. Crazy. Florida State was there today. Was there anything on their end that, because I didn't really read much about them. I read a lot of Jim Phillips, and obviously there's the localized reports as well, SMU. But was there really much from the Florida State perspective outside of just their players kind of going through the regular media day motions?
Full disclosure, guys, because of the interview schedules and my schedule and when I was writing and such, I did not listen to the Florida State interview.
Okay.
I apologize.
No, yeah. I mean, we were at Media Days just a couple weeks ago, and I know how that can go. But, yeah, I was just curious, especially given the highlighted comments today and the fact that they were also there on day number one. David, just from your perspective, what's the most exciting thing about the ACC that you think people will be talking about on the field this year?
I think the arrival of SMU is one of them, but I think the primary storyline is, can the league get multiple teams into the playoff, and is Florida State ready to offer another type of season like it did a year ago?
It's just amazing where it is. Thank you, David. Great stuff. To get you on the first day of ACC Media Days is great. Appreciate your feedback and insight and knowledge. Thank you.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks
you.
for having me.
David Teal, the Richmond Times-Dispatch from ACC Media Days.
And his podcast, if you want one that can give you like measured historical facts and about ACC when they talk about realignment, he and why am I blanking? Because we've had his partner on the show. They do a very good job of, okay, here's how the ACC works.
Brian Murphy?
It's not Brian Murphy. It's another guy from the Dispatch who will come to me 20 minutes from now.
Okay.
Welcome to my 40s. But it's very good. It's very, very good. They do a great job on it, and they again, this is a grizzled old journalist here in David Teal, so he's not going to be prone to like, it's happening tomorrow, and then and you'll never believe the other teams that are coming with them.
Yep.
Yeah. God, there's this phrase I keep seeing. It's from the same. That kind of terminology. It's a Florida State guy though. It's like every day the earth is falling apart. And it's like how could it still be on the precipice when like 100 days ago it had like the pinky fingernail was the only thing holding it all together, and it's like 100 days later it's like the asteroid's almost here. It's like, all right, well, I guess now we're just waiting on it at this point. But yeah, we've got a much more measured kind of grizzled response from David of like, you never say never, but from where he stands, things are the way that he sees them, and that is where there's not like the seams are bursting apart and there's blood, like there's no way to save the patient. This case being the ACC. Everything's still intact. Everything's there might be a little bulge here. Something's a little swollen in the Florida State area. But other than that, it sounds like everybody's just kind of, I don't know, guys, going through this process, right? I mean, it's a process. And the legal process is at the forefront of that. And there's nothing, no matter who you are, other than getting that Saudi check to pay $1 quadrillion to get out right now, that you can really do about that. So as much as you want it to all be breaking apart, if you're a certain fan base that wants to see them bleed for whatever reason. Everybody's at the mercy of the legal matters. And I think you just got to kind of always come back to that with this story, because that's where it starts. That's where it ultimately will end, is in the courtroom, unless this thing just rides out to eternity, or ESPN here in about 6 months decides to make a pretty major decision that, again, is going back to my question earlier of, can you really just discard, multiple schools in multiple cities and just for the sake of bettering this other conference? Like, I don't know how all that would work, but that's still going to be the next thing that people point to, because that's valid. Like that decision by ESPN at the start of next year is valid. All the rest of the noise, it seems like, as ACC Media Days gets underway, is just that. It's just noise. And I don't know, Paul, did you see anything Florida State happened to say today? That was
I haven't.
Not that their players would be the ones breaking news.
They kind of started their stuff while we were, dealing with a computer snafu during triple option, and then after that. So I haven't seen it yet, and I expect Mike Norvell to say nothing about it.
Right? Yeah, the players aren't going to say anything.
The players, they don't care. It doesn't matter to them.
I just wondered if Mike Norvell had like the on-stage session like the Big 12 does, and he was asked about that. I hadn't seen that.
I haven't seen any good quotes though.
But if he did, he either they haven't got around to posting it, or it wasn't interesting enough to post anything about it. But, I mean, for the first day of media days, were you expecting, all right, what do you expect with Jim Phillips and what he has to say, and Florida State being up first and all those things? They're navigating relatively well. I mean, or about as well as you could.
I would have liked to see this much gumption back in December, but
no, I was going to bring that up. If Jim Phillips would have had this kind of bite and fight,
that's fair,
in him in late December or whenever that was, I guess it was early December, right? You wonder, it probably wouldn't have changed that Alabama was in the playoff, but it sure would have made him look a little stronger, because we saw what Sankey was doing for SEC.
If I was Florida State, I maybe, like David just said, maybe not filed on December 22nd, which was 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
Maybe I would have been like, okay, well, let's see, okay, now I've heard something I like, which I think before part of the reason is that every time they went to the conference commissioner and said, like, hey, these are things that bother us, is there anything we can do? And he's like, no. I think that's what was frustrating to them. And then the snub happened, the rage happened, and they decided, all right, well, that's it. We're doing this on December 22nd. Would they probably still be suing to get out of the conference? Yeah. Probably, but it more than likely probably happens in March, or something like that, where they build out some time. And
I think that's what created so much bad blood, was the timing of it all. It's like, it just happened. We get it. You hurt, but like now you're lashing out against us, and it was not our fault. Like, if we should have responded stronger, okay, but like 2 weeks later you're filing a lawsuit to get out of here. Like, that just seems a bit extreme, and it kind of sounds like something you were planning on doing anyways, and now you've got a convenient excuse to go ahead and go through with it. And the timing, everybody's as emotional as they are.
Well,
you probably felt like, let's throw it all out there,
The decision clearly to me was, well, we'll have way more people on our side right now, considering that we've been snubbed and we've been wronged.
Right.
Not realizing, like, it doesn't really matter who's on your side or not. This is just a court case.
Yeah.
So that's a bad decision. Just do it when it's the best time. Like, not because you're emotional about something.
They were very emotional, it seems like, at least initially, and that was maybe a good thing, maybe a bad thing. I don't know that we really know just yet.
Ryan Murphy, who has been on the show before, WRAL and the News Observer in Charlotte, he said, it won't matter as courts will decide leagues of fate, but Phillips defended the ACC in a way I hadn't seen before. This has been a league that started way before me 71 years ago. It will be a league that will be around a long time after I depart. He also said...
that's one of those never say nevers, But
Phillips also said, either you believe in what's been signed or you don't.
Well, Florida State doesn't, and various others maybe haven't been public with it, but I think they're tempting, or they're trying to see how true that is.
Brian Murphy, David Hale, you mentioned him up. All of them are like basically saying that Jim Phillips had himself a hell of a day.
Yeah, and it sounds like he did, and good for him because he needed one. I will say this. I would have phrased it differently. Either you believe in what you've been signed or you don't. Well, clearly Florida State and Clemson don't totally believe in it, especially Florida State completely doesn't believe in it, but either you value the decision you made or you don't. You take your responsibility in this. I think that's where Florida State's got a lot of explaining to do, at least to, because my question would be, and I know that this is, I think now 2 university presidents and 2 athletic directors ago when they made that decision, maybe even 3 athletic directors ago, but when you made the decision, like, you didn't maybe see this coming considering what was going on around you, and then you didn't look at the other conferences and say, all right, look, maybe we need a little more stability than the SEC and Big Ten because nobody's come after their team specifically. But instead of doing an 18-year grant of rights or whatever, why don't we do 9? That at least gives us some flexibility, because it just, on all the teams in the ACC's part, showed a remarkable lack of foresight that things were changing. Like, they were going to go, oh, well, A&M and Mizzou are in the SEC, and Colorado, Nebraska are in the Big Ten, and, the Big 12 figured their stuff out, and we're fine now. I'm sure this will never happen again. Well, I mean, that's
When was
naive.
the first time that Florida State brought up bitching about the ACC contract?
Sounds like it's been like a continuing thing.
No, it hasn't been as long as we think, but you're right.
Yeah. No, it's been about 2 years now. Totally. Yeah. When you get top
How much
to bottom.
money can they earn if they were to have another year like last year, make the college football playoff above and beyond what they're going to get anyway?
Yeah, still not as much as
how much?
It's like $25 million, right?
Yeah, that's a lot of money, man.
Yeah.
I mean, the quote I saw earlier on just like I think the quote was $25 million that you could make if you won big, and
like across the board. So you're talking about what was
I don't know if that's
44,
just football or
that puts them in the 65-70 million range. That's pretty damn close.
Yeah,
that's pretty. It's if you go back up who you are.
But it's 65 and 70 million. The SEC's already getting more than that just for existing. And then
I don't know
they're
if
going
that's
to get
what
the
it is
same
yet.
money.
I think that's what it will be.
But like they're going to get that just for existing, and then they're going to get that same money for the same success. So the gap still exists regardless of how much you have. The gap is still there.
Yeah,
it's
the difference
there
is that you have to beat Clemson and maybe even near Miami or North Carolina, whereas in the other league you have to get over Texas, Oklahoma, Florida, LSU,
Georgia.
Alabama, Georgia on any given year. I mean, that's the expanded playoff. If that wasn't in effect, I think this would be like case closed. You totally understand Florida State's position. Even maybe not case closed unanimously, but with the expanded playoff, the whole like money chase and we can't compete thing rings a little bit more hollow, because it's like, well, you're throwing away access potentially. I get the whole idea of the other league's better and they're going to have 7 teams in every given year and all that stuff, but like, I don't know. It seems like you'd have a pretty easy path in the expanded playoff versus the 4.
Yeah.
I know you got screwed in the 4, but that was the 4.
Whose itch is the ACC scratching to add that extra money, incentive money? Florida State, Clemson, whatever.
North Carolina.
North Carolina. There were 7 schools.
Yeah.
I mean, there were 7 of them.
It just seems like to me.
Yeah.
And I love Florida State. I love Bobby Bowden. Always did. That was like, if I had a second favorite team, that would have been it, other than Arizona State growing up. It just seemed like to me that they're complaining a lot. They have a right to feel the way they do because it's about they got to take care of themselves. But it seemed like they're complaining a lot, and then more was put on the table, and it's still not enough.
Yeah, I mean, but it's still not. I mean, when you look across at what your rivals are making, and then other schools that, like Maryland, who used to beat regularly and still hasn't done anything since going to the Big Ten, they're making way more than you just for being in a league.
So why don't they just why don't they leave then?
Because
they can't afford it. Because they're signed a contract. Yeah.
It's the whole argument of the entire story.
No, I'm just saying. It's just like, why don't they just shut up and go play? Just go do their legal work behind the scenes and just stop being so loud about it. Because
Who's
really,
they, though?
Florida State.
They're fans. That's the thing, though. Is like it's not their
AD has said.
No,
their
AD has said stuff, but he's kind of got to say some things. I mean, I don't know. I understand where you're coming from. I think there's a way you can go overboard, and I think at this point it's that, because it's like all it is now is just it seems like they're constantly bitching, and nothing makes them happy other than what they want. But I don't fault them at all for seeing what they feel like maybe writing on the wall, or see this gap increasing and going like, we got to speak up and we got to fight for our future. And so I totally understand it from there. I'd be pissed if I was a Florida State fan and they were just sitting there and taking it. Like, you know what? I'm sure there's some segment of them that say, hey guys, cool out a little bit and let's just play sports and, see where the tide takes us ultimately. But like we talked about at the very beginning, this was very emotional from the get-go. It happened 2 weeks after they freaking got snubbed out of the playoff. They're filing a lawsuit. So they weren't sitting there thinking this out all that clearly, it seems like, to begin with. Or it was already on their mind, and they finally had the reason to fully go through with it. So this has been building. This wasn't just a totally knee-jerk reaction. This has been brewing for a while for them, and so this is part of the trying to get your way out. I guess in their case is being a little bit of the whiny child and hoping that will rattle things enough that you'll ultimately get your way. And we'll see if that works or not. Right now it's not going to because this continues on, but maybe it ratchets up to a point where enough are on their side and there's enough of a loophole somewhere along the lines where the ACC agrees to come to an agreement. And guess what that would mean? That would mean they win in the long run, even if they are paying a hefty price tag, because ultimately they're getting what they want, which is out of this league.
Well, and I also don't think that they're helped by this attorney general.
Well, but here's the thing.
Like in your regard of, do you think they're making too much pressure?
They're becoming. That's a distraction. It's a massive. It's got to be a distraction, no matter what Mike Norvell may say or not. I can't find a single quote from anything Florida State today at ACC Media Days.
Yeah,
none.
and
from even those who cover them.
Yeah, I saw they were on Radio Row, doing stuff. But I mean, again, without listening to those things. But my point being is that if people are bothered by how much you hear, okay, when you filter the fans out of it, which is a lot of the noise, and the AD has been very bold about it, which is, you kind of expect, but then you have, the problem is that they've allowed their entire board to have, to go out and talk about it, which most schools don't. Like most schools have, it should be Michael Alford and the president and really no one else. But letting Drew Weatherford talk about it, letting all this other stuff talk about it, that's made it a lot more. That's a lot of stuff. And I do think the fact that you've got the AG in Florida trying to politicize this to no end doesn't help them either.
So go Black 45. Would Smokey say the same thing if this happened in Nebraska? Yes. I think that you have a right to fight for your own institution or whatever. I just feel like what Florida State has done is put this big distraction on their back, and I can't help. This all comes down to a legal move, right?
Yes.
No matter how much they talk or squawk or win or not, it's still going to come down to a legal deal.
Yeah, they're not going to scream enough that Jim Phillips finally goes, all right, fine, you can have your candy. Yeah.
So my point is, would I feel the same? Would I say the same thing? Yes. I'm not going to say it just because I just said a minute ago, my second favorite college football program for years was Florida State. I loved them. Even when they broke my heart beating my favorite school, Nebraska. What I think is it's a distraction. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it is.
It's a distraction.
It's a distraction, and, I'm not saying that they've taken the perfect tact in every way. They could be more Clemson-like in this regard, and I think people would calm down quite a bit, but they've certainly created a fervor, and that was somewhat intentional because they threw a lot of gasoline on the fire. Multiple people did. And now you're trying to control that blaze as best as possible. Is it also possible that they threw a little bit too much too soon? Yeah, it is. And I do think there is an element of people out there that are getting sick of this and all the other noise that it creates and getting sick of, what's Florida State bitching about now? And so I do think there is an element of that, but I also don't blame them for fighting for what they feel like they need. If they absolutely feel like they cannot succeed in any other way at the level they need to without this move, then you've got to do everything in your power to try and make this move happen. But there does come a point where you can cross that line of whining where it's like, all right, now y'all just need to shut up and go play sports like you said and quit your bitching.
I think that Clemson probably appreciates Florida State for their passion. I also think Clemson probably appreciates Florida State because it's deflecting anything on Clemson.
Yeah,
and that's what my friend is pretty high up when it comes to knowing people in the ACC said that Clemson might just one day go, hey, we're staying here. We love this conference. And then, God knows, let's go on to something else. But it's just the first of 4 days. They have 4 days. We talked about the SEC with 4 days. The ACC has their 4 days. They have 17 schools.
Totally ridiculous.
And the Big Ten starts on Wednesday, and they have Wednesday? They start on Wednesday?
Yeah, I think it's Wednesday.
Big Ten, yeah. All right, speaking of that, Garrett, when we come back, we'll show the poll. The Big Ten apparently does not do a media poll, but we'll show one of the polls that the favorites in the conference. Dave Aranda today spoke in San Antonio. A couple of notes from him. Quiet people don't make history often. That's from Go Black 45.
Yeah, I mean that we could we really need to sit down and talk that out and go through. But I see where that's coming from.
I appreciate that. Go Black 45. I'm not saying that Florida State is wrong. I'm just saying that it's created a massive distraction.
Their tactics are probably a little scatterbrained.
Some other schools that might even be a bigger brand could probably get away with it a little bit more and deflect it. But
and also, I would suggest this to people when you're watching anything, especially publicly trumpeted legal cases in any walk of life. What they say outside in front of the microphones and what they say inside the court are often different things.
Yep. Craig, you were going to add something to it as well?
No, yeah, I think what they said is totally valid, that you got to bark a little bit sometimes and speak up for yourself. But I think maybe the issue right now is they're on 9 and they need to be more on 7. And they went from 5 to 9 without even stopping anywhere.
Yeah, they skipped.
Yeah, they just went straight to yelling. And that's where the kind of perception I think of Florida State is that they're too loud. Whereas you could probably have been a bit more tactful with it. But I do get where you're coming from as far as speaking up.
All right, when we come back, we'll look at the Big Ten. They open up, I think there's tomorrow. Also, I think the Conference USA is another one, the Sun Belt. So there's a lot of media days wrapping up this week. We just mentioned the Southland with our SFA interview with Colby Carthel. We're 50-50 on whether John Talty of 247 Sports will join us today at 5:30. He was stuck in a tarmac headed to the Big 12 ACC Media Days. If not today, we'll try to see if we get him tomorrow. Much more to get to. This is 365 Sports. Make this the summer event continues at Allen Samuels in Waco. The deals are as hot as the summer days are right now. You can buy a new Jeep Grand Cherokee 4XE for $55,490 or finance one for 2.9% for 84 months. That's 2.9%. If you like 2.9 for 84 months, you could also take advantage on the 2024 Dodge Hornet RT or a 2024 Jeep Wrangler 4XE. That's 2.9% for 72 months. Buy a Ram 2420 or buy a 2024 Ram 1500 Limited Crew Cab. Save $13,686. One of the last Ram Premium Model 1500 Crew Cabs to have 5.7 Hemi V8 engine. Or how about the 2024 Ram 2500 Crew Cab Tradesman Work Truck, and that's for just $49,990. Dodge Durango SRT Hellcat reduced to $8,596 from MSRP. The 2023 new Dodge Challenger SRT 8 Hellcat jailbreak model for only $85,490. B5 blue wide body, one of a kind. 300 new cars on the ground, immediate delivery for you if you want to buy one. 100 pre-owned as well. Allen Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Our good friend Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jewelers here at 365 Sports. Now, Brad, people who watch and listen to our show know I'm a double-time customer for you, engagement ring and wedding band, and you guys do that great, but that's not all you do at Boozer's Jewelers.
Absolutely, and I always like to say, it's a new year. It's a great way to start the year out. Go through your old jewelry. Go through your wife's jewelry box. Go through anything you're maybe not wearing, something that's broken, something that you're not using. We do a massive amount of custom work. We can take your old jewelry, old diamonds, old watches, and we can convert it into something special for you and make a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. And if that's not something you're interested in, a great thing is we can turn that into cash. So we buy gold, we buy diamonds, we'll buy Rolex watches, any kind of heirloom jewelry, anything that's maybe passed down to you.
Boozer's Jewelers, where do they find you, Brad?
We're at 1025 North Valley Mills Drive, right on the corner of Lake Air Drive and Valley Mills with the big clock on the corner.
Bambi SQ, what is the number one reason or two or three reasons, Bambi, that people should contact House of Travel?
As a travel agency local here in Waco, we can take care of all your bookings, your payments, answer your questions, help you when there are issues or problems, things that may come up that you don't know what to do or how to fix them. People don't realize we don't charge a fee for what we do. It doesn't cost you extra to use a travel agent. We're just here. We get paid by the tour companies and the cruise lines to represent them. But you have an expert on your side that's here and local, and you have a name and a face to put together to help you with anything that you may need. Give us a call. We can price things for you. We can help you answer questions. We can make it simple, easy, and one stop.
Your knowledge of all the years you've done this and then spit it back to them or give them options?
It helps us to kind of know a date range, a budget, what your goals are and what you want to see and do on your vacation. And then that helps us to know what to look for, and we can narrow down and help you make the best choices for your vacation so you get the best value, you get exactly what you were hoping for, and making sure that it's taken care of with a carefree, easy, simple for you type vacation. I've been doing this for over 40 years. Every day I learn something new. I experience new situations and things that I can help take care of for people, whether it's just making sure you get the best deals and find the best vacations, or whether it's to solve that problem like you've got a flight that's being canceled and you don't know what to do. There's weather coming up, but should I cancel my trip next week because of the hurricane? Those are things that we take care of and you don't have to worry about. You've got somebody that you can rely on that you know is an expert, knows what we're doing, have been doing this for a long time, so that you're not questioning, okay, does the person on the other end of the phone really understand what I'm asking or know how to find those deals? You've got an expert, and we are here to take care of that.
For more information, go to houseoftravelwaco.com.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
365 Sports. We start this 5 o'clock hour with the Big Ten Media Days opening up tomorrow at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. And Brett McMurphy posting this. The Big Ten, they really don't have one, a preseason media poll, but this is one from Cleveland.com. Ohio State, an overwhelming pick, and that would be the case most every year. Obviously, Michigan the last 2, 3, 4 years with Harbaugh, them making a run. Penn State would be involved. But now you have Oregon, red hot. So here they are. How about USC 6 coming in from the Pac-12? A lot of questions about Lincoln Riley and his football team. There you have UCLA 15.
Here's my thought on it, the media day polls that we've been seeing. Cleveland.com with a nice little assist there from McMurphy, just because, like, hey, we don't have one. Let's just use Cleveland.com. Like, that's cool for their writers that to get that put out there as, like, kind of the unofficial tally. But here's my thought on this one and on every media poll we've seen. The leagues are too damn big.
Oh, yes.
The leagues are too damn big.
Absolutely.
This is
It's
stupid.
nuts.
And we're talking about them getting like to 20, 22, 24. I just think I don't like it. I don't like how big the leagues are getting. I think it's ridiculous. But I understand that's where we are, and that's not changing anytime soon. But, yeah, I mean, Ohio State has been talked about as much as any program in the country as a national championship favorite, with how they've loaded up in the transfer portal and just what they have coming back talent-wise. There are huge expectations for them. And, man, this is – talk about, like, outside pressure with Michigan winning the title last year and having won the last couple of meetings. Like, I think with Ryan Day having this team and all this hype, it's like, dude, you better perform. Not like you're on the hot seat necessarily, but there's big expectations in Columbus this year for sure. So, yeah, not surprised to see them on top. It is very strange, though, to see an Oregon at 2 and a USC at 6. Although – as much as I just complained about the size of the conference, I do like that it mixes it up a little bit, because it does feel as though the Big Ten's been the same 3 teams at the top of every poll for about the last 20 years.
Well, Wisconsin was always a part of that mix, too.
Them and Iowa, like, changed places as far as being interesting for a year here and there, but mostly it's Ohio State 1. You know, Michigan State's been in that mix as well. But
look where they are, 16.
Yeah, not great after the whole debacle. And, you know, new coach, we'll see if they can, you know, get going with Jonathan Smith. And, you know, he had a lot of momentum there in Corvallis before the hire, and he's got a fun offense and all that stuff, bringing in Childs as well. Maybe they are a little bit better than expected, but yeah, not much expected in year number one. But yeah, it's too big of a league, but it's also good that it is because Oregon makes it more interesting and USC potentially makes it more interesting, and maybe not so much UCLA based on where they're voted, but that's another just wild card.
Well, I thought about
Washington.
that, but they lost their coach, Deshaun Foster's first year.
Right, sure. No, I'm not arguing why they're so low, but I'm saying they could still make things interesting for all we know because, we don't know anything.
I can't argue any of it because, like you said, it's so damn big. It's like, how do you put your hands around 16? Like, for example, you're Wisconsin, who's usually pretty good. Year in and year out, they're pretty good. They got a new coach in Fickle in what he's doing.
Second year.
But still 7. Like, Wisconsin's got a pretty proud history. They're I thought I saw this the other day. They're one of the winningest college football programs of all time that does not have a national champion.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me, yeah. Yeah, that'd be one of my first guesses because they've won a lot of games. They were very much in the mix for many years of whether it's Rose Bowls or Big Ten division titles and things like that. But yeah, they haven't won a natty, but they've been consistently pretty good for a while. But yeah, and you take out 2 teams at best, they'd be 5th if this was the old iteration of the Big 12. So still maybe a low where you'd want them to ultimately be or where you'd expect them to be, but I don't know. That's probably about it. I mean, them, Iowa, Michigan State, besides the top 3 that have been kind of the top 3 for what seems like a while, those are usually the ones that have made things interesting. But I think in this case, maybe you're hoping Nebraska can make some. I mean, Rutgers, believe it or not, like as much as we kind of like don't look their direction down here, they've got some momentum going on.
If Nebraska finishes 8th, that means they're a bowl team.
Yeah, but like you said, I mean, the leagues are so big. I mean, if you're 11th or you're 17th, is there much of a difference there? I don't know how much of a difference there is. So it's not disrespect. It's just like you got to order these teams in some way, and somebody has to be 17. Sorry.
Yep.
And when the splitting hairs is like the difference is so minimal between like 10 and 17, then yeah, you can kind of throw it out in any order you want to, and who the heck knows?
I'm curious about the Big Ten. I'm going to look this up. I'm just going to pick, USC, because we've talked about some of the schedules of the new teams in the SEC, like Oklahoma seems to be much more difficult, deeper than UT. USC has LSU to open the year, which they tried to get out of that game. Utah State, okay. By the way, they lost a player over the weekend, had a cliff diving accident.
Yeah, it was very sad.
Yeah. Michigan, Wisconsin, Penn State, Washington, and Notre Dame. That'll be that's a big. Then there's other teams in there that might be pretty good too. It's just like you said, Craig, from the beginning. It's just so many teams. It's hard to even. All right, I'm going to ask you guys this: among the all-time winningest programs in college football history, which of these this is the highest level. Which of these teams what's the first one we get to that has not won a national title?
Okay.
Michigan.
No, they won a bunch.
They just did. Yeah. Alabama.
More than anyone.
Ohio State.
A lot.
Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Texas.
Yep.
Oklahoma.
Yep.
Penn State.
Yep.
Nebraska.
Yep.
Georgia.
Yep.
USC.
Yep.
Tennessee.
Yep.
LSU. Auburn.
Yep.
Clemson.
Yep.
West Virginia.
No.
Yeah.
They would be the highest among, and there's other schools on this list, like the Ivy League schools, also Mount Union, Wittenberg, North Dakota State. But as far as the autonomy for West Virginia, 781 wins by far. A&M has the one in 30-something?
Yeah, and then the other one they claimed like 10 years ago when they joined the SEC that magically became a national championship they had never claimed before. Kind of like Auburn's done that, Alabama's
UCF.
done that, various others have done that. UCF is legitimate.
Yeah. Washington.
Unofficially legitimate.
Washington has some. Virginia Tech.
Hold on. UCS was more legitimate than the other ones that were like the Street and Smith's poll in 1956 that we had 3 losses, but they named us number 1. Like those are the most BS national titles.
The Dunkel Index.
Those are the most BS national titles, and shame on anybody who's claiming those. UCF's was more, I think, fun than anything else, and I don't think anybody really took it all that seriously. And, do they claim those in their official media guide? They probably do.
There is one
you have unclaimed is what it's called.
There is one that UCF fans will tell you is an official one because of how the NCAA recognizes these things. And that was told to me at length in Orlando. I just can't remember which one it is.
It was Tom's YouTube channel, his postseason top
Yeah.
two. Tom's YouTube National Champions 20, whatever that year was.
So, okay, back to what I was, you're right. There's a lot of them. Like, for example, Texas has 4 national titles, 1963-69 under Darrell Royal, 1970 Darrell Royal, then 2005 Mack Brown. But listed on Wikipedia, there are 5. So
That's
even
some
the
fan
most
trying to-
No, this is a lot like USC has some of those, but there's like the Dunkel Index and Sagarin, whatever. So
Texas has 4. They don't have 5.
They have
So
4.
whatever UT fan wouldn't put that in there on the Wikipedia page. No.
Yeah,
You're pulling
they
an
don't
A&M
need
trying to
be-
add titles.
They don't need to make them up. I think
They
even
have 4.
Ohio State probably has some unclaimed. All right. So West Virginia 1, Virginia Tech would be 2. Pittsburgh has 1. Florida's got some. Georgia Tech.
They've got 1.
Syracuse.
Does Syracuse have one like back in the Jim Brown kind of era?
Yeah, I don't know now. We're getting to the point of it's like pre-World
I mean,
War
not
II.
in my-
I don't.
Yeah, I don't. But that's just a note.
The Collie Matrix.
Collie Matrix. That's one.
UCF.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. So but that was interesting that West Virginia, who's been good, has the highest amount of wins, but without a national title. And they had that. What was that one team? Was it with Vic or Major Harris?
Well, Michael Vick didn't play for
He played
Virginia Tech. I mean, I was talking about Virginia Tech. Was it Major Harris in West Virginia that knocked on the door so close?
Yeah, I think
or was
so.
it somebody else? But
Michael Vick knocked on the door for a third quarter and then got his ass knocked right back out.
Oh, wow. Isn't that special?
West Virginia fans will tell you very quickly of how historically good they are. They get very upset when people try to poke at them as though they haven't been good for a really long time or are not one of the most winningest teams in college football history. But, yeah, the national title has eluded them, and they are, I think, a program that does get a bit disrespected more often than it probably deserves to. I don't know if that's because of its geography or its conference affiliation or just the fact that it doesn't have a national title.
Well, it was independent for a while, wasn't it? Then Big East, yeah.
Yeah, but what conferences has it been in where it's garnered a whole lot of respect, to my point. So, I think it does get disrespected a bit, but they've won a lot of games. They haven't won a natty, though, so they're still in pursuit of that. It's hard to see that coming anytime soon, but who the heck knows? Neil Brown, keep this baby on track and keep building, and we have no idea what the expanded playoff's going to look like and how that's going to work. I mean, it could be harder than ever to win it. It could be easier than it was before because you finally have teams who have the access and the ability to actually, instead of being told, well, there's no way you could possibly win these 2 games.
Right.
Now you can actually go and see if you can.
No, and then
before
and then
you weren't allowed
you
to
win them, yeah.
But you were just told like, oh, well, there's no way you could beat Auburn and Georgia in back-to-back games. And now you can go prove that wrong, or some other combination. So, for everybody out there who hasn't won one, maybe this is your chance, or maybe it's going to be near impossible because just the way things are built up now. But yeah, West Virginia's had a long, lengthy, and storied history.
1988, they were 11-1, lost to Notre Dame in the championship game. Major Harris separated his shoulder during that game.
And now he's doing realignment scoops.
Yeah. 2007, they were 11-2. Were left out of the BCS National Championship game after they lost to Pitt. 2005, a couple more years with them, 11-1. Rich Rodriguez was the coach.
Those Rich Rod teams were a lot of fun. Those were like the teams of the 2000s. And so, I mean, Vic and Vatek, there in the 90s, 2000s transitional period. Oklahoma started off the 2000s in the SEC dominance, but throughout that time, West Virginia, had some fun-ass players, man. Pat Smith and
Pat White and Steve Slayton. I mean, holy cow! Was Noel Devine.
Yeah.
Oh no!
They could.
2005 team lost to number 3 Virginia Tech in the conference championship game, and eventually beat Georgia to finish high as they've ever been.
Michael Vick was the player that Frank Beamer always needed to be a national championship caliber team. And they were. In 1999, they were right there. Just there was a better team that beat them, but that's what I always needed. And then it's just so hard. You get one Michael Vick, you're like, oh, we'll get his brother. His brother was pretty good, but not Michael. But you never get that player back again, and he's, program changing. Some places get 10 Michael Vicks. Alabama, would have a Michael Vick, and then they'd have another one and another one and another one. Virginia Tech and Frank Beamer managed to do all this and win a whole bunch over their time, and they only had, one of him who was, the dynamic offensive player they needed, which is why they blocked so many damn punts.
Yeah, West Virginia had a couple of teams in the 50s on the edge, but that's just a little, I just thought about that. That wasn't a shot, by the way, at the Mountaineers. They have been close 4 to 6 times in the most wins without a national title. All right. Here is, earlier today, a lot of coaches from the state of Texas at Texas High School Coaches Association. It's a massive convention going on in San Antonio with, like I said, coaching clinics and speaking engagements. Here's Baylor's Dave Aranda when asked about his football team and what they're doing now.
Please tell me he walks out in a green fur coat with big dollar sign glasses, big old pimp cane.
He's got
looks
got
like Pitbull.
Gold and diamond teeth now.
Yeah, he's got the grill.
Here is Dave Aranda. Yeah.
Bryce Cherry, Waco Trip. Dave, what has Keenan Hall meant to your program, and especially with maybe some of the recruiting victories that you've gotten lately in the DFW area?
Keenan's been great. Keenan's brings a lot of energy and enthusiasm, and I think he brings a really strong work ethic. I think he wants to win, and he gets in battles, and wants to close and finish the battles. I think when I think of Keenan and his work, I think of Dallas, Baker, getting in fights, recruiting battles and winning his, and then I think of Jamar Chaney, picking battles, trying to win, and I just think all of it. The ability to pick some of these fights that we're picking, and in terms of recruits and hey, we want to win this thing, all to me ties back to we have the ability to close it out now, where in the past we didn't, and so it's while I'm way excited and happy about the direction it's going now, in the past we'd be battling and fighting and continually not be able to finish, and so now to be able to have the ability to close it out and win some of these big recruiting battles is because we have that the NIL money that can back us up, and so I think we've all benefited from that. Keenan has as well.
Carter Yates with Dave Campbell's Texas Football. Dave, going off that recruiting piece, there are now 2 Texas universities in the SEC and another school in Oklahoma that primarily recruit Texas. How do the Big 12 schools like yourself compete with them?
Yeah, I think we've got to build, establish your brand, establish your own identity, and I think you got to have success playing. I think, you look at SMU and what they've been doing here this past year or so and the success they had and the recruiting that they've been doing. You can look all throughout the TCU and the success that they've had and the recruiting they've been doing. And so I think you have to win, and then you have to have the resources to go out and build your brand and find kids that match you. And I think that it really matters it matters first with winning. I think without winning, it's all kind of an empty deal, because the kids are going to want to know, especially with the playoff, that you can make the playoff, that you can be competitive in the playoff, right? And then when you're right now with Baylor, we've kind of got chip on your shoulder. We're kind of the outsider type thing going, which is cool to see, but that has to be validated come the season on the field. And so I think you know who you are, you have the resources to recruit to who you are, you go out and win. I think those things have to happen.
All right, so there we are. That's from the Texas High School Coaches Association. Appreciate them making that available. Here's one more note, by the way. Dave Aranda's gone straight, just nothing, as he said to us back in Las Vegas, ball. It's what he eats, breathes, drinks ball. Aranda, I know summer's kind of coming to an end. My wife's mad at me right now because I haven't really spent any time with her and the kids. I'm here at the convention. It's just another nail in the coffin. When it's bad, you get it from all sides. He has gone straight into to being what he really is, which is a football junkie.
Well, honey, it's that or start packing up the moving boxes. I mean, that's the reality of it, and I'm sure that's really difficult to manage. I think you could sense the weight of all that's on his plate at media days in Vegas, and not in he's falling apart way, but you can just feel the pressure. Like, I don't know if you guys could. I could, certainly. I felt like there's a pressure there, and I like that he gives Keenan Hall the credit, but I do like that he also doubles down on – because there's a lot of really good recruiters out there, and I do think Baylor's got a really good one in Keenan Hall, but I think it's very clear that the difference is that they've had other good recruiters as well. Maybe he's the best one they've ever had. I don't know. But the NIL piece is like, that's the deal sealer right there. So I think they've got a great combination right now of a guy like a Keenan Hall, of a Jamar Chaney, of anybody else you want to mention on that staff that's doing a good job in that regard. And now, like he said, they've got the closer. So I like that he's expanded upon his thoughts a bit more rather than it's just, we're paying players. It's like, there's the coaches still have their part in this, but ultimately they had a lot of good coaches that could recruit last year. And what was the difference? When it came time to pay up, they weren't ready to do that and everybody else was.
Right.
And so that's the difference. But now they've got it both. They've got the talk and they've got the walk, and they can do both, and they've got a great combination with a Hall, Chaney, and those guys, as well as, the money side of things that everybody's had to kind of build and create in so many ways these last few years. So, it's good to hear him talk about those things because it means they're having success, whereas we didn't talk a lot about recruiting for a really good long while there because there wasn't much to talk about, save for a pledge here and there, but none of them really were like, make your eyes bulge when you saw the text alert come in. You're like, oh, that's cool. 3-star so-and-so from so-and-so. That's great. Right. Then all of a sudden it's 4 stars rolling in, baby. That changes things. That changes the mood. That changes the feel. And tell me it doesn't feel different around them having a little bit of recruiting momentum this month versus what we felt like a month ago. So, again, it all comes down to winning. If he can win some games, I think he's got the right mindset now, the right balance, and I think he's got the right staff, and I think he's got the right mojo in recruiting to get this thing back on track and make it pretty fun and interesting. But you've got to win enough this year to ensure that happens. And so I'm very curious of how that plays out, and we'll get to find out here in the next month or so, and I'm very much looking forward to that.
All right, John Talty might be ready. You want to go to him?
Let's take a break so I can call him.
Why did you raise your eyes, Craig? He's the guy who's wrote the story about the ACC. I think he's either on a tarmac still or he's got delays. Let's see if he's available. Let me talk to him during the break.
Okay.
He wrote the article about the ACC has an issue with who they are, an identity problem. This is ESPN. Excuse me. This is 365 Sports. Wow, I haven't done that in a long time.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac. They are the people you can count on for all sorts of automotive needs, whether you're looking to get into a pre-owned vehicle, a used vehicle, get your car worked on, whatever the case may be. They have been a good friend of 365 Sports for a very long time now, and they want to be a friend of yours as well. Right now, celebrating American quality and value during the red, white, and blue sales tag event at Richard Carr. You can travel America with your family, friends, or even solo in a pre-owned 2015 Dodge Challenger for just $224 a month. How about a 2019 Ford Explorer for $249 a month, or a 2018 Chevy Suburban for $448 a month? Those are just some of the offers going on right now, but less than $500 in monthly payments, in some cases less than $300. Their lot is also loaded with quality pre-owned vehicles, tagged with a special sales price. All vehicles are thoroughly inspected. 100% financing approval is always their goal, and you need to get there now for the big American savings during their red, white, and blue sales tag event at Richard Carr. Take advantage of all of those great deals, plus military and first responders can save an extra $500 during the red, white, and blue savings tag event. So get on over to Richard Carr today. You can check them out over on Highway 6 off the Imperial exit or at richardcarr.com.
It was broad daylight. I stepped into a gas station for 5 minutes to grab a snack, and just like that, my car was broken into. They made out like a bandit. My laptop, my phone, everything. I called my agent to see what could be done, and he restored my faith in humanity. My claim was processed so quickly, and I was able to recover my losses.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Thank you for calling your local Marco's Pizza. We're turning up the heat with our new Reaper Cheesy Bread. Fresh, house-made dough is topped with a spicy cheese blend infused with jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers. At only $5.99, this limited-time product is a hot deal. Add it to your order while you can. A Marco's team member will be with you shortly.
Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it, and that offer on the Reaper Cheesy Bread is available right now at any of the 5 Marco's Pizza locations in Waco, including Belmead, China Spring, Robinson, Woodway, and Hewitt. Order online at marcos.com. Call for a pickup or delivery. Marco's Pizza is turning up the heat with their all-new Reaper Cheesy Bread with fresh, hot, house-made dough topped with a spicy cheese blend infused with jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers. And only $5.99 and for a limited time only. Marco's Pizza, the fastest-growing pizza brand in America. 5 locations in Waco. And the new Reaper Cheesy Bread. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Samantha Duvall, TexasBeefHouse.com. From their pasture to your plate, premium quality Texas farm-raised beef. Samantha, you've had more and more online auctions, and you have another one coming up in the middle of this month.
On July 17th, that will open our next steak auction, and it closes the next day on July 18th. About 48 hours of tomahawk, New York strip, flat iron, ground beef, both Angus and Wagyu. It's a lot of fun to get on. You just get on to bidonbeef.com, create an account, and it'll walk you through all the steps that you have to do in order to bid. Everything ships for free nationwide in the lower 48 states.
The flat iron steak to me is underrated. Fajitas, it tastes so good.
The flat iron is my absolute favorite. And then, of course, your tomahawk, that's just a showstopper. It's something exciting to put on the grill for everybody to see. Each steak is about anywhere from 3 to 4 pounds. I'm telling you what, it'll feed pretty much a whole family. A 4-pound tomahawk feeds the 6 of us.
The 48 states ship free. Go to TexasBeefHouse.com. Again, premium quality Texas farm-raised beef, Wagyu, Angus. It is amazing. July 17th and 18th, tomahawk, New York strip, flat iron, ground beef, Angus, and Wagyu. You really are doing these auctions more and more frequently.
Yeah, so we've had a lot of great feedback. A lot of people love to get online. The ending is what we call a horse race finish. So at 6 p.m. when the auction ends, if anybody has been bidding in that last 2 minutes, it keeps the auction open for 2 more minutes, and that continues until all bidding has stopped. So that's kind of the exciting thing to watch at the very end is, the timer reset because people are getting on there and they're making sure that they're getting that lot that they want. So this is your best bet to get the best price. And it's a price that you want to pay, not what we're setting the price. And you're getting it in bulk. So you're getting more than just one package of steaks. You're getting, depending on which lot, anywhere from 4 to 8 packages of steaks.
Go to TexasBeefHouse.com, July 17th and 18th, the auction. And you can find much more information. Bidonbeef.com. And don't forget the discount if you put hashtag Sick'em365.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
One of the first stories I read earlier today was a Brandon Marcello-John Talty combination facing identity crisis. Frustrated ACC members point the finger at TV coverage or lack of it. We discussed this a little bit in the opening hour today. John Talty, who's been battling flight issues, who's headed the ACC Media Days, joins us on 365 Sports. John, is there anything they can do about it?
Great question.
They have some theories, but they're in a tough situation. It's really a challenging spot in which you don't have a lot of marquee brands in your conference at this point. The ones that you probably could make an argument that you do have are actively looking to leave. And then, the rest of your brands that you have are kind of, unconnected in some ways. You've got the North Carolina crew, but then you've got Syracuse and Boston College and now SMU and Stanford and Cal. It feels kind of random in some ways, and I think that's what's hard about what they're going through right now with their identity crisis, is that there's just a lot of schools that don't necessarily have one kind of common theme or connectivity between them, and that's kind of where the ACC is.
Dabo Sweeney asked, why don't they have an effing Feinbaum? And that was kind of maybe a little bit shocking for him. But in that regard, when it comes to the ACC network, and Feinbaum might be unique in all of this, but there's not anybody who shills for that league on that channel like Paul Feinbaum is able to on the SEC network. Is there a way it's almost too late to create that now? And really, is there anybody that could do that?
Well, I think part of it, too, is that it's kind of a chicken or egg thing, right? Where is it that Paul is able to, put out and promote the league, or is it that strong fan base throughout the SEC allows him to have the stature that he has? I think part of the issue the ACC has is that there are not fan bases that are going to be calling in year-round to a call-in show like Paul's, arguing on May 1st who Alabama's starting quarterback is going to be. There are a couple schools like that in the ACC. Florida State's certainly one of them, but it's just hard to imagine Wake Forest fans doing that, in May 1. So that's part of the problem. One of the guys that we quoted in the story is one of the ones that makes sense to me, Danny Canal, currently, under contract with CBS, but he seems to be one of the people that I have at least noticed in terms of ACC-centric personalities who are a bit more boisterous, a bit more willing to be aggressive publicly and trying to, boost the ACC talking points or mentality. But, the truth of it, too, is that, I think Paul is kind of one of one in many ways. And even, I talked to Bill O'Brien for that story, and he was one of the ones banging the drum the hardest for a Paul-type personality. And even he admitted, there's probably not someone exactly like him, but we got to find somebody. And I think one of the core things that they believe, Bill O'Brien being one of them, is that, you have to be willing to accept some of the negative with all the positive. Paul's going to kind of stir it up a little bit. It feels like when you watch ACC network programming, no knock on those people, it feels very benign, very down the middle. There's not a lot of controversy in it. And in turn, there's not a lot of spice to that programming. And I think the coaches realized, all right, maybe we need to take a little bit of some of the stuff we don't like when Paul and other people like that are calling for our heads. But the positive is that there's a lot of eyeballs on that, and they're talking about the league year round. And that's part of what ACC football needs right now.
Given, I guess there was some level of expectations for Jim Phillips to start things off. Was he better than you expected, about what you expected, worse? How did you just sort of view his talk today?
Well, I think it was in some ways a perfect encapsulation of the problems they're going through right now, that they're having ACC network technical difficulties, and they weren't even able to show big chunks of his press conference today. I mean, that to me is part of the issue. I do think he was stronger than maybe he's been in the past. As you can tell, at least I felt like that the Florida State and Clemson stuff is starting to get to him. I think that was his strongest defense yet of the problems that those multiple lawsuits those two schools are causing for the ACC. I was impressed by that. But, part of the challenge, and it's hard to say this, but, I think Jim Phillips is a really nice guy. I think he means well. But I do think he's a nice guy in a poker game full of sharks. There's a lot of other guys who I think are ruthlessly trying to better their conferences. I think Brett Yormark is a great example of that, of a guy who doesn't really care about ruffling feathers and is going to do what he needs to do to make his conference better. It's just hard for me, and also people that I talk to in college space, to just see Jim having the stomach to really do that kind of stuff. It's just not really his style, which is honorable in many ways, but it also sometimes leads you to have some questions about whether he's going to be able to make that big move or big changes to kind of get the ACC back on an upward trajectory, whereas right now it's still in kind of a fight for survival.
You think that because of there was a report earlier today that Clemson and Florida State will not tell the ACC they're leaving after this year, that means that extends it for this year, next, and how many other years. Does that calm things down at all, in your opinion?
I think it does to some extent. I think it lowers the temperature a little bit, but it still hovers over everything, right? I mean, think about first day of ACC Media Days. What are we talking about right now? We're talking about, are Florida State and Clemson going to stay, and how does ACC fix this identity problem? Well, part of their identity problem is that their top two brands want to leave. So until I think there's a resolution, that's going to continue to loom over, and I think it's going to lead to more questions of, at a certain point, if there's no way to bring them back, there's no way to save the marriage, sometimes you almost would prefer to have the resolution and know, okay, you're leaving, go ahead and go. We're going to figure out our new life with our new, collection of brands moving forward. I think sometimes the more it lingers, it almost can create other problems because there's so much uncertainty. It can create so much angst of your other members. At some point you just want to kind of calm the water. So it's a long way of saying I think it lowers it a little bit, but it's not going away, certainly anytime soon. And as long as those cases continue to play out legally, it's going to be something the ACC is going to have to deal with essentially every day.
John Talty with us. 247 Sports, CBS Sports on 365 Sports.
John, we've asked a couple of people about this and curious with your opinions, on Clemson and the way that they've kind of soft pedaled this compared to Florida State. Do you feel that Clemson would ever see a day where they would go, that they might just stay?
It's interesting. It does feel like Florida State has been certainly the most aggressive, the most out there. And that's part of I think somewhat of a reflection of the personality of the place, the personality of that fan base, the personality of their trustees. They're just always have been a bit more aggressive, a bit more out there. Clemson, I think, is playing it more true to, kind of what their brand is, a bit more understated. I think very highly of their AD, Graham Neff. He's, kind of more of an under-the-radar guy. He's not really trying to get out there. He's spoken very little about it, and I think that's very intentional. They've kind of been biding their time behind the scenes. So I think it's certainly possible. I mean, one of the big questions of all this, and I think bubbled up again last week, is say you're successful with these lawsuits, which is very much up in the air, very much a question. Where do you go? And I think that question continues to loom for both Clemson and Florida State is, where is the actual landing spot for you? Now, they certainly might know more than I do, but we talked to different people at the two most obvious conferences, the Big Ten and the SEC. There's a lot of questions about whether they are a natural fit for those two places. So I think at a certain point, I could see in a scenario in which they say if they're able to get a bigger share of the revenue, and ultimately they don't see a better option out there in the landscape right now.
So do you believe, and we've discussed this before, and I know you're at an airport, I believe, terminal, but if in fact they were to get free, Florida State, do you honestly believe the Big Ten nor the SEC would be interested in them?
The Big Ten makes more sense to me. It's always made more sense to me. That gets you into a new market. And also kind of allows you to plant a Big Ten flag in SEC country. It makes sense to me. Now, I think what I saw last week in some of the reports that came out reminds me a little bit of kind of what happened to Oregon and Washington, was essentially we're not taking them at a full strike number, but maybe if the number's right, then maybe we would be a little bit more interested. So I don't see at this current juncture, especially after Oregon and Washington were forced to take a reduced share until the next TV contract, that Florida State would come in at the peak number right now. Now, if they're willing to take a lesser number and that it's just not going to cut into the shares for the other schools, then of course that makes them more desirable. I don't know what their stomach level is for that, but I think that changes the kind of conversation. Now, in terms of the SEC, I've reported this for years now. I'm going to continue saying it based on the people I've talked to. They are not interested in Florida State. That's not a never say never type situation. Things can change. They can be forced into action. But I've been repeatedly told by people that I trust that UVA and UNC are higher priorities. That gets them into two different states. They like that it kind of gives them a greater geographic reach, but also still kind of fits into the overall geography of the SEC. Clearly, schools like Florida do not want Florida State to join. And I think there's an open question about, do they really up the money more? From what I've been told, the SEC does not believe that it does. And so there's not a major desire for them right now to add a school like Florida State.
John, what airport are you stranded in?
Currently in New Jersey. We'll see if I ever get out of here. We've been on the tarmac a couple times and then came back and then back. And so, I don't know. Looks like we might be boarding at some point in the near future. Who knows? It's if any of your listeners have to fly today, tomorrow, good luck. It's a disaster out here.
Oh, I've seen stories of the lines like Delta. Everyone's struggling. Well, good luck getting out of there. Hopefully you get out of there in time to get settled in at a hotel, get a nice meal, and get some sleep.
That would be lovely. Hopefully you guys are speaking truth by saying that. Enjoyed talking to you guys.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Thank you very much. The videos of the baggage claim or lost baggage.
By the way, the only airline that's not having
Spirit
it's Southwest.
Oh,
because the CrowdStrike thing that is tied into Microsoft. Well, Southwest computers are too old to run it. So their little thing that caused a collapse a couple years ago at Christmas time is now the only thing keeping them afloat because they still haven't updated their computers. Yeah. So now they're like, Windows 95 sucks, huh?
Yeah, even our flight, of course, Dave Aranda and the players were on that flight. We mentioned that, last week and maybe even a couple of weeks ago because their flight had some mechanical issues. And, it is a tough time to be flying, and especially with a lot of vacations that are going on during the summer. When we come back, Paul Catalina and his top 5. So last week, Texas Beef House had another live auction, online live auction. And it was at the end of the show, it ended at 6. I think it's like last Wednesday. And I put in a claim for 2 Wagyu tomahawk ribeyes. I mean, the big ribeyes. I think it's like 8 pounds or so. And I put it a bid. I went online. I said, you know what the hell? And I thought I got it. But what happens is in the last 2 minutes, you go to Bid on Beef or you go to TexasBeefHouse.com. You go to Bid on Beef, and they have all of what's going to be available. Then you go to their website, and you can say, okay, I'll bid on these 2 tomahawk ribeyes or on these 4 sirloin, there'll be New York strips. And then when they get to the last 2 minutes, those who have learned how to do this auction better than others can go in there and outbid you the last 2 minutes. But when then they do that, 2 minutes starts again. So then you could go do it. And it could actually, instead of ending right at 6, it may go another 30 minutes to an hour or so. So at the end, I lost out on a couple of tomahawk ribeyes. I got a text, I think it was on the text line from Kim Coulter. He tried to do that with tomahawk ribeyes. I'm not sure whether or not he got them as well, but it's a great deal. You pay what you want to pay for steaks. It's not what's on a label when you go to the grocery store. It's what you want to pay. And then if you don't get it, you don't get it. If you do, that's great. And they'll send it to you because Samantha Duvall and the staff will do that. So they just wrapped one up. There's another one coming up in mid-August. They have Wagyu, Angus, farm-raised cattle right there on their ranch just outside of Tyler. It's great when it comes to beef. If you want to buy, you can go online and buy anything when you want it at TexasBeefHouse.com. But the online auction is something special at Bid on Beef on TexasBeefHouse.com.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top 5, presented to you every day by our good friends at Texas Beef House. Use our code SICK'EM10. In honor of President Joe Biden stepping away from the presidential race, we thought that we would do a top 5 of top 5 people also too old to do their jobs. And I want to preface this by saying this is all in good fun. Please do not get sand in your parts about any joke that I make. This is the comedy disclaimer that is really sad that I have to make, but I'm doing it, and none of these things are political at all. I promise you that. So before you get excited and heated and triggered, these are all in the sports world, except for the last one, which is also not in the political world. Number 5, Miami tight end Cam McCormick. Who is Cam McCormick, you say? We've never heard of him. Oh, you have? He's a tight end that has played at Oregon and other places. He is in his 9th year of college eligibility. I'm sorry, Cam, I appreciate your stick-to-itiveness and your gutsiness to fight through all the injuries you have to stay in college for 9 years. But listen, Van Wilder, it's time to move on. It's time to move on. In the immortal words of Tom Petty, it's time to move on. It's time to get going. What lies ahead, I have no way of knowing. That needs to be you, Cam. Jump out into the world and start your life. 9 years is too much. I'm all about players' rights and all, but dear God, bridge too far. Number 4, this one kills me. It absolutely kills me. I love this man unconditionally. Unconditionally. I love him. But it's hard to watch him on TV now and not be worried. And so I know he's bounced back from his stroke very well, like health-wise overall. But eventually, again, Lee Corso's going to have to retire, and I hate that we have to see that day, but not so fast, my friend. He is not as fast as he used to be, and that was his strength. That was the thing about Lee Corso, and that's the hardest thing to see is he was so quick on his feet, and he's just not able to do that anymore. But yes, Lee Corso, and I think that's going to be kind of Nick Saban's spot eventually. Saban is funnier than people give him credit for, but nobody will ever be Lee Corso. This is as irreplaceable a television person as ever there was on sports TV. I mean, he is in that category of you're just not going to have another one like him. Number 3, Jerry Jones. And I say this as a Cowboys reporter and a Cowboys fan, a Venn diagram that's unfortunate. You'd like to be able to separate the two. Unfortunately for me, I can't. What I will tell you is, when most people get towards the end run, and I have a theory on this. Look, Jerry is in his 80s. He has billions of dollars. People who are that old and have that much money, their bouts with mortality are not necessarily like ours. So I'm sure there's part of Jerry that thinks he's never going to die. And then there's the part that thinks that eventually, yes, everybody's time is up. And that part's the reality part. He has not reacted in a way with the Cowboys yet that suggests that he's willing to pull out all the stops so he sees one more before he's on to the next event. But certainly, I mean, the way he says things now is way more off the cuff and a little bit more, ping, 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 all in, we're all in. So, yeah, I don't know. I just think that it's time for the younger Joneses to do things. And look, the younger Joneses do more things, but it's probably long past time for Jerry's influence to be shrunk in that organization and just do things differently. And I will say this, Jerry Jones has done a lot more for the NFL and for the Cowboys and all this than people do give him credit for, and he deserves that. But let's face it, 80 years old and plus and all in this, it's just not the best time. He should be able to relax and watch them win. That's my point. Number 2, Alan Bowman. And look, I understand, Oklahoma State fans. You're going to say right off, what about Cam Rising? And I will say, absolutely. I almost put him up here together with Alan Bowman. But I knew that it would make you madder than the Utah fans, and Cam Rising is a little more fun to watch play. So Alan Bowman in his 7th year in his 3rd school, and he's got an MBA already. He's got a retirement plan. He's got, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure like when an insurance commercial comes on, he's like, oh, Allstate. I'll look into that. That's Alan Bowman. And I only picked him. Because I knew you'd get so mad about it. I'm just tweaking you a little bit, but Alan Bowman on this list, and not Cam Rising, even though Cam Rising should be on this list, but just to kind of tweak you a little bit. Just to tweak you, wet blanket, especially you. I hope you get super mad. Love you guys, really, really do, but you get really mad when criticized, and I enjoy it so much. It is my cocaine. Number 1, Harrison Ford. And I only say this for one Harrison Ford rule. Again, another person, as a lifelong nerd, geek, dweeb, whatever you want to say, I love unconditionally. This is a picture of a digitally de-aged Harrison Ford in the first part of the latest Indiana Jones movie. That was the best part of the latest Indiana Jones movie because it made me very nostalgic. And look, this is great technology, but after this is an 80-year-old Harrison Ford. I almost said Gerald Ford. Almost said Gerald Ford.
Almost the same.
Harrison Ford, running around doing Indiana Jones things, and let's face it, Indy should have been enjoying his retirement by this point and not, chasing after the Dial of Destiny or whatever it was. I actually did thoroughly enjoy the movie, but the last two Indiana Jones movies, he's just felt older to me. And when he runs, I'm impressed that he's in that good a shape, but he shouldn't be running at 80 years old. Bottom line. So, Harrison Ford, again, to Harrison Ford and Lee Corso especially, I love you both unconditionally. There's really very few things you could do to make me not love you, but let's get to the point here. Also, I would like to point out that Harrison Ford, Lee Corso, and Jerry Jones are all in their 80s, and Cam McCormick and Alan Bowman are in their 20s. There's a gap. There's a gap, and I understand that. I recognize it. I see it. I hope you all enjoyed this and had a good laugh. We are in weird times in our country, and I really just want people to have a chuckle. That's all. Love you guys. We're wrapping it up right now.
All right, Paul, thank you very much. By the way, when I mentioned Texas Beef House, who's the sponsor of Paul's Top 5, Justin Rogers was one of those that put in a bid and won some of the tomahawk ribeyes. So, Justin, congratulations to you on that. Also, what did you just tell me? Mark Carnival?
Mark Carnival, who we've had on the show
PGA Tour
20 times maybe. I mean, a lot over the years. He passed away.
Yeah, he's been an analyst for us when it comes to some of the major championships and sports stories involving the PGA Tour and even with what's going on with LIV. So, two tweets from college football reporters. One of them, John Talty, who we just had on the show, with what happened on Sunday afternoon with Joe Biden, President Biden pulling out of the re-election campaign. John Talty, political reporters everywhere just learned a lesson college football fans know well. Once the boosters start leaking and they want you out, you're done.
Yep, pretty much.
And then
pretty much.
Ben Portnoy, political reporters really about to learn what it's like to cover a midseason college football firing.
Yeah. To the political reporters' credit, and there's some like outside of cable news that are like on the ground just going to rallies and having to like sit through that BS all day long. And I'm sure eating at a Holiday Inn Express breakfast with dry eggs and going, what am I doing with my life? But they already know it, especially the last couple of years. I mean, in the last week, we've had one candidate get shot out, one candidate drop out of the race, and they're not the same guy. So it's we're at a very bizarre time in American history for sure.
Absolutely, and it will just move on. Also, thanks to Garrett Ross, also Emery Winter for being here today. Emery's dialing up 365 Sports tonight, 10:30 tonight on the local CW. If you haven't, please hit the like. And if you haven't, subscribe button. And if you have, then send your word to somebody else about what we do every single day. Thanks to those in the chat. Thanks to those who are on the text line today. And, of course, our great sponsors. We have a pretty loaded show tomorrow. I don't have the guest lineup in front of me, but we'll be loaded on college football with a lot to talk about throughout the show tomorrow. Paul's Triple Option at 1. This is it for 365 Sports tonight. Thanks for your time, and good night.